All right, well, I want to welcome everyone back for another episode of Race with Time Radio. My co-hosts this evening are James Horak and Myron McDonald. We have a very special show for you this evening for two different reasons. Folks who stay in contact with us via social media, via our blogs or Facebook, received a notification a couple of weeks ago that we would use the time during this show to answer questions from listeners. A lot of really wonderful folks submitted their questions in writing. I want to thank everyone who took the time to do that. They're good questions, and we're really looking forward to answering those. We're going to read and answer those questions for the first hour, and then in the second hour, we're going to take phone calls. Dave has changed his number once, and I want to make sure I've got the right number. So at the top of the hour, before we go to break, I'll have Dave give out the telephone number for people who want to call in and ask questions. And then I'll have him do it one more time when we come back. And the other reason that this is a very special show is because this is going to be our last show, our last Race with Time radio show. Any questions that we don't get to this evening that were submitted in writing can be submitted on the EMV blog, and that is emvsinfo.blogspot.com. My blog is drowninginabsurdity.wordpress.com. So I'm sure folks are wondering why this is our last show. First, let me say that this has been coming for a while. We didn't begin this show as a career move or to eventually maybe move into full television production. We don't care about that. None of us care about that. We do what we do out of a sense of duty because of what's happening and where it will go if it isn't stopped. So this is a discussion that we've had for some time, and we finally made the decision that it's time to kind of move on. Now, James wrote a wonderful and eloquent summary that I think really reflects how we all feel about that. So I'm going to ask him to read that to you. Are you ready to do that, James?
Yes, I am. And good evening, everyone. What I wrote is, our last show on Wolf Spirit Radio will be tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. While so many listen to the woo-woo cooing of the large part of the alternative media, we have come to the brink. The madness that has allowed the progression of the Fukushima meltdowns has at least made newsworthy enough the reporting of nuclear waste lakes at Hanover, Carlsbad, New Mexico, and elsewhere. Events that might not have made it to the news were it not for gathering public interest. But just as at Fukushima, the official releases have been focused on purely handling public perception and not truth. We will connect the recent wave of earthquakes and the magnitude threat posed by shifting conditions in Yellowstone to such irresponsible practices as these. Together with the extensive extraction of oil, and now fracking, subsurface detonations in the past, the madness of employing HAARP, and the decline of an atmosphere that once shielded us from full-spectrum light, this planet has been brought to the very crossroads where one more wrong turn can easily lead to our extinction. Instead of the slow death by an already poisoned environment, you may have a fast one. You have little time left to turn it around. My colleagues and I feel we are simply trying to find new ways to say the same things in redundancy.
Yes. Did you want to add anything to that, Myra, your own personal thoughts, maybe?
No, I'll probably be able to interject with something later on, but it confirms what we've talked about privately, particularly with the recent nuclear events in America on top of what's going on in Fukushima. It's not looking good, but we'll discuss more about that later.
All right. So there are two things I want to make very, very clear before we continue. And the first one is that David Corso has been a wonderful and gracious producer. These are personal decisions that have nothing to do with Dave. What he does is wonderful. It's been an honor and a pleasure working with Dave. The other issue is that I want people to understand that this is our last show for the reasons that James just explained. This isn't a publicity stunt to get more people going to our blogs, and in fact the numbers have been going up. They have been going up. James's blog has been around for a few years. His counter gave out and stopped working after around 270,000 views, but I can tell that more people are coming to his blog, more people are coming to my blog, more people are watching the videos. The problem is that it's too little, too late. There aren't enough people that understand our situation enough that makes this worthwhile. There's nothing more to say that hasn't already been said over and over and over again. It's decision time. And those decisions are going to be forced on people. And the longer they wait to do the right thing, the harder it's going to get. And this is, this is going to be really difficult for people that are hiding in the New Age coward corner, because the time that they had to do the right thing the easy way is pretty much gone. So for all those folks who believe, well, we can only learn through suffering, if we survive what's going to happen, I can almost guarantee you they will no longer feel that way. Okay? So that's very important. Now, what does that mean, too little, too late? It's very difficult to convey what we have been up against, what most of you have been up against. The alternative media, forums, Facebook are infested with alphabet supers, paid opposition. I mean, it's a mess. They do everything they can to muddy the water. And, it blows my mind how people feel comfortable, given what's happening on this planet, doing shows about ghosts and Bigfoot, and this is really, in a moment, you're going to get a very big reality slap that's going to, I would hope, explain on its own exactly what we're talking about. Now, James has been saying for months that it's been 3 years since Fukushima happened. Nothing has been done to mitigate the damage or entomb the reactors. Nothing. Why? Well, at this point, we can argue, is it the eugenesis? Is it depopulation? Is it purposeful? Anybody who does the slightest iota of honest research is going to discover that it is purposeful. People who can't wrap their brain around that, that's just fine, because the outcome is going to be the same. If you want to believe it's done out of ignorance, it doesn't matter, because in the end, nobody will survive it. So, James has been saying for months, those cores are going to hit the mantle of the Earth, and when they do, this is China syndrome. Okay? So, people who are familiar with HAARP earthquakes, by this point should know that almost invariably, those earthquakes are 5 miles deep, almost consistently across the board, 5 miles deep. There's a fellow named Dutch Sense that a lot of you are probably familiar with on YouTube. He's also on Facebook, who keeps track of a lot of these strange anomalies going on the planet, especially where modified weather and earthquakes are concerned. And on April 7th, he put out a notice about several different earthquakes on our planet. And I'm going to read them to you. One was in Brazil. It was a 5.1. It was 347 miles deep. There was one in Russia. It was a 4.2, 311 miles deep. Fiji, 4.9, 359 miles deep. Indonesia, 4.6, 273 miles deep. When I first saw this, I shared it on Facebook and I asked people, because of the depth of these earthquakes, have the cores finally hit the mantle, or are they just getting too close for comfort? So I'm going to let James address this, because this is something that people need to know. And I know that there's not one of you listening to this that can point to another single source that's going to tell you what we're telling you. So if you wouldn't mind, James, can you explain what's happened?
No one wants to talk about the cores. They waited and waited and waited before they would admit that they had left final containment, the very bottom-most extent of the floor of those core chambers. So it was difficult for anyone to predict how long they had been in the ground and would continue going down and at what rate, because this is a premier event. It has not happened before. The continued fission has not happened before. They have isotopes, radioactive isotopes, that are being formed for the first time on Earth. So the extent of this is new, and it should not have been allowed, because it is experimenting with something that can lead to destabilizing the crust of the Earth. I do know that there are astrophysicists that are familiar with particular problems concerning the crust of the Earth, and the fact that there are radiation fields, there are gravity fields, there are magnetic anomaly that are associated between the Earth and Moon in a correspondence. I have been talking about for a number of years now about this relationship between the Earth and the Moon and why it exists the way that it does, and that it's the fluctuations in these factors that keeps the Earth from having a constant gravity wave and being able to hold helium, which is a significant respirant that your ancestors had developed with and that you don't have. And why this fractures the mind in a particular way into a split consciousness, and why this is enhanced with techniques that the elite have acquired over a period of time to exercise a great deal more control over us as individuals. But this has been challenged by these core meltdowns. When they have hit the mantle, this will disrupt the relationship between the Earth and the Moon. This will affect major shifts in the crust of the Earth. It's responsible right now for destabilizing a tenuous relationship that already exists in Yellowstone between the fracture points of the tectonic plates there. There is a network of fissures. There's a network of faults. They all come in some relationship to this one specific area, and it is a pressure release. And now the pressure is growing so that animals are becoming aware they'd better leave, and that is even a better method of predicting a major event than seismology. In fact, one of the seismologists that has the best record of predicting earthquakes and predicted the last one in San Francisco that occurred during the World Series, first game of the World Series, had predicted it on the basis of stray dogs leaving Oakland and San Francisco. All of this is related to how we have injured the Earth. We've injured our environment by extracting oil in great amounts, leaving these cavities that are filled in with seawater, which does not have the viscosity of oil, does not cushion the Earth and allow it to compensate in ways that are less harmful to our culture and our civilization. The last time we had major uplift on this continent, the Rocky Mountains were formed. They were formed in minutes. And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about something that can occur that is that dynamic and that impacting. Uplift is a fact of nature, but if you interfere with the natural balance and you use things like HAARP irresponsibly, you degrade the atmosphere and the filtering of the light, it doesn't take place the way it should. All these things are accumulative. It's just like radiation. Radiation and the hot particles that are emitted from fission are accumulative. There is a point in every individual, and it may vary, where you're going to have your life shortened, if not ended. So when we talk about these things, in very many ways, the individual is parallel with the Earth. There is no science that would exclude either relationship between nature and the Earth, the health of the individual, and the balance in nature. These things coexist. When one is out of kilter, the others are too. We have forgotten this. We have forgotten what the American Indian knew and honored, and we're going to pay an incredible price for it in our arrogance. And the people that are making the decisions today have never had a connection with this balance of nature, nor cared, and so they have exploited every situation they could, regardless of what the consequences were. Hence, you have the Gulf of Mexico fiasco, you have Fukushima being ignored, and the whole theater of public relations in Japan has been nothing more than perception management. Nothing has been done remedial. And today, the Japanese government have a secrecy act that will threaten anyone who speaks out about Fukushima and says anything unsavory to the government's concerns with imprisonment. The horror stories that propound from Japan daily are handled here in the media, and the alternative media has not been very good about its concerns. There are a few very adamant activists that have championed these concerns, but they're not heard as they should be. They are not aware of what the menacing effects of these cores hitting the mantle are, because people do not understand on this planet the geophysics and astrophysics that are related to the Earth and its moon, a moon that is not natural to this planet, that has been put in place around this planet and engineered to stay in orbit around this planet, because if these adjustments that are going on between engines on Earth and machines in the moon weren't occurring, the moon would leave us or we come into Earth. And that's a situation that is going to come about if things don't change. By changing, I mean these people that are making the decisions need to be brought down and replaced with people that recognize these dangers, that care about nature, that care about saving this planet, and will appeal to off-Earth intelligence for help. You have no other choice now.
Yes, and I want to make this other point very, very clear. We are not saying that you're all going to die no matter what. We are saying what we have always been saying, that if you don't get involved and change the direction that we're going in, we're going to get where we're going, and it's not survivable. No one will survive it. And we are closer to that moment than we have ever been. As long as I have seen people recording earthquakes, I have never seen earthquakes this deep, ever. There's a small town just south of Yellowstone called Jackson Hole. Those people were evacuated because the land is shifting. They're having landslides. And, you know, and again, this is another one of those things we're going to say over again. When James talks about the engines and the planet that work with the moon and how this was engineered to support life a very long time ago when we first came here, people say, oh, well, you know, nobody else is saying that. It can't be true. And they can't be bothered to actually look it up. All you have to do is Google the phrase Horak moonshaft, and you will discover that one of these engines was discovered, and not by James, but by his ancestor Antonin. And this has been known for long enough that back in 2006, there's a band, I think it's called Moose Heart Stellar Groove Band, that released an entire album called Horak's Moonshaft. One of these has been discovered. And, you know, the other thing that you know, we tried to be delicate about it is the complete, it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit, the hostile alien thesis. And we have done our best to try to get people out of that mindset. And that is so important because, as James just said, the people that you have been taught to blame all of humanity's ills on have for a very long time been working in the shadows, trying to buy us more time to get our act together, and things have gotten so bad because we didn't do what we needed to do to keep it from getting this far. We have no way out of this situation without their help. That's where we're at. We need their help. People ask about the Keshe Foundation. Is the technology good? You know what? It probably is. It probably can decontaminate radioactive soil, but can it get to the mantle of the earth to entomb the cores? We don't have that kind of technology here. You know, I really hope for a lot of people this will be one of those, quote, come to Jesus moments. For so long, it has been an uphill battle constantly with everyone that we deal with. The alternative media won't touch anything important. We've tried to explain that they're either useful idiots or purposefully paid opposition. Your own government has repeatedly admitted that they're creating cybersecurity task forces that are going to go in and create phony social media profiles so that they can attack people that are trying to bring you this information. This is very serious. And we have to, you know, it's so frustrating because we constantly hear people say, well, I don't know what's right. I don't know. I want to read my happy books and think happy thoughts. If you still feel that way, you are of no use to the human race in our most dire hour. You really need to understand that. It's so important. It's very, very important. We have crossed a threshold that we, meaning Team Earth, the people on this planet, we have crossed a threshold that we are not capable of getting back from on our own. We're going to need help. How are we going to get that help? Are we going to get it from the people that are still constantly telling you the hostile ETs are behind everything going on? How many times do you have to say to people, the planet isn't dying, it's being killed, and the people doing it have names and addresses. They're people. They're not coneheads. They're not reptoids. They're people. We know who they are.
And there isn't a nice new planet waiting for the good people to move on to when this planet goes, if you pardon the expression, dick up. There is no new planet waiting, because that's another one that you hear people saying. It's like, oh, that's fine, all the good people will go to the new Earth. Where that came from, I've got no idea, but I'm just sitting here. I'm sort of half smiling at that, but at the same time, as Crystal points out, it is such dangerous thinking. This isn't an illusion. It's not an illusion. It is reality. I watch the trends from Fukushima just about every single day. Every day I wake up, I look at what's happening in my skies with the geoengineering being sprayed. That is my reality, and I do occasionally escape from that, obviously, in order to stay reasonably sane. But that's how the Earth is for all of us. And it's going to get so much worse.
It's going to get a lot worse.
Yeah. And we can't go to another dimension. We're not going to ascend. And I can speak honestly about that because the group, the cult that targeted me for a full year tried to convince me that that was the case. And these groups spend an awful lot of money and time lying to you over and over and over again. And you can go to an alternative radio station and you can hear the same story, different song, different background noise or whatever, but it's yet again putting you off the track. They try very hard to put you off the track. And the other thing that really gets me is that a lot of these presenters on these alternative news stations and, you know, in that scene, whenever you're struggling to try and find out things, they're not doing the research themselves. They'll have a guest on, and that guest will go blah, 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 and they'll go, oh, blah, 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 and they'll support each other. And then off they go, and they interview someone else who completely contradicts what that first guest has said. If you understand where I'm coming from here. So in other words, it's like this big kind of maelstrom of BS being spun around and around and around. And in the meantime, this huge event's going on the planet that's going to take us out. It's not rocket science, people.
No, in spite of the fact that the powers that be want you to believe nothing, have no faith in anything, that makes you harmless. That makes you ineffective. That makes you ineffectual. You can't be a threat. And of course, as long as you're not involved in anything that can threaten change, meaningful change, then you're okay until, you are lined up with the rest of the useless eaters, put in a FEMA camp, because of some emergency that is committed in your area and done away with. And if you don't think that that is in the agenda, read anything related to what we're talking about. I mean, this isn't something that we made up. This is in their own official documentation. Read Agenda 21. Read any of the issues of Foreign Affairs, which is the quarterly periodical of the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, going back to the 70s. And you'll find articles written by people that talk about depopulation and what the goal of depopulation is and how it can be obtained. You know, it's in black and white. And you hear people like Bill Gates and Rupert Murdoch and Ted Turner all talk about it like, you know, well, this is what we need. This is what we're working for. And recently I heard Putin come out. He spoke at a conference, international conference, of 40 nations. And he talked about unipolarity, which is the goal of globalism, is a unipolar control of everyone by a very small group, and how this would affect sovereignty and how it infringed on trade, it infringed on democracy, it infringed on everything that we have been taught has a value between the individual and the governing body that rules that individual or decides the law, and how this would all evaporate. And he was absolutely correct. And he said, one of the things that he said is, you know, the people that are constantly trying to teach us about democracy, since we transformed from a communist society into a free enterprise society, are the ones that are abdicating it today. And we certainly are, aren't we?
Yes, and to quote Ayn Rand in that really beautiful and very expressive book that she wrote, regarding Ayn Rand, she said, and this is so important, you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. And you see all these people, oh yeah, look, the people in charge are psychopaths, they can't face the consequences of their own actions. But if you take a very serious look, the way we have been forced to, in trying to get meaningful information out into the alternative media and hitting roadblocks at every turn, what's the difference between an alternative media show host that won't talk about what's important and what really matters, and the psychopaths running everything that also don't want to look at what really matters? There's no difference. There just isn't. And I'm
One
not
is the other's whore, Crystal.
That's exactly right. They've spread their sickness to others because they're elitist, and they think, well, you know, people know that if they want to try to cash in on what we've got going on, our name is going to be on their paycheck. And people took the deal. You know, when you were talking about nature, I almost interrupted and made a comment. They would care about trees if money grew on them. And if you think that the alternative media is any different, why aren't they telling you what you need to do to save the future of the human race? Why? They won't do it. They will not do it. We're tired of fighting it. We're tired of fighting people that don't want to know how to save their own future and their own children and their own grandchildren. So everything we've said in all of these shows really is just another way to say the same thing over and over and over again. And my advice to you folks is to do what I'm going to do, and that is take care of my immediate family, because things are going to get very, very sticky soon. People waited too long to get involved, and the longer people wait, the uglier it gets. It's getting ugly. You're going to need to make sure that you have plenty of food and water stored for the times ahead, and a lot of people listening are probably aware of what's going on at a ranch out here in Nevada, not far from Las Vegas, the Clive and Bundy Ranch. Now, this man is a sovereign individual with a very large piece of property that politicians and NGOs are trying to take away from him because they want his resources. They have stolen his cattle. They have destroyed his his water tanks so that the animals can't drink water. This is the time of year when the calves are being born. He was not only concerned about the cattle not being able to get water, which is how food gets put on our table, and of course people should know the price of meat has skyrocketed, and it's going to continue.
Partly due to things like this.
That's exactly right. And the only thing that is saving this man and his family, even though one of his sons has already been tased 5 times, he's had his property destroyed, his cattle have been confiscated, because Harry Reid and his son made a deal with the Chinese for a solar plant. And there's minerals on his land, and there's gas, and they want to frack it. And you see, this regime change, people really need to get what that means. When the talking heads on the television start telling you to support a regime change in another country, what they're really saying is those people in charge of those countries, their leaders, have something that the military-industrial complex wants, whether it's their gold, their minerals, their gas, their oil, and the person running the show in that country won't give it to them willingly. That's when, oh, look, it's time for regime change. And then we put in a puppet who will go with the flow. What's happening to this man on his ranch is the same thing, and this is fully in line with Agenda 21. If Agenda 21 goes through, you will not own property. You're not allowed to own property. You're going to be shuffled into these massive city centers. You're going to be banned from going into the wilderness. And on top of that, you see all these people on social media posting these cute little shoebox houses, and wouldn't that be great? No, it's not great. This is social engineering. They're trying to con you into accepting smaller cells. Some of these homes don't have bathrooms. There's no room for children, but that's okay. They're sterilizing you through the food and water anyway. You're not going to be able to reproduce. I mean, people really need to get with the program. This is not a good situation, and we have said and done everything that there is to say and do to help people understand what's happening, and there's no point in continuing. It's all out there. If there's a massive pile, everybody knows there's corruption here, there's corruption there, there's toxins here, there's radiation there. How much more do you think you can add to the pile before you act, before the whole house of cards comes down and we're done, and it's the 7th extinction and it's over? That's what we're facing. People need to really get that. That's where we are right now. So now that we've went through all of that, and it took a little bit longer than I think we thought it would, but that's okay, we're going to start going through the questions that were submitted to us in writing via both of our blogs. We're all going to take turns asking the question, and whoever wants to answer it will answer it. And if you don't mind, Myrid, I would like to start with you. We'll have you go, and then James go, and then I will go. How's that? Does that work for you guys?
Yeah, I'm just scrabbling at the moment. My glasses.
Okay.
The joys of old age.
There is one more thing I would like to say, Myrid, before you begin, if you need an extra moment to get your bearings. I was very skeptical. There was a movie that I found in my Facebook feed called The Mirage Men. You could rent it for 48 hours. It's like $7, and it was about how the UFO community has been completely snowed by people working for black ops and agents who purposefully muddied the waters. And I was very skeptical. I watched it, and I was extremely impressed. The people who did this film did their homework, and most of the film includes a man, his last name is Doty, who was one of these people, and he flat out admits that he gave all kinds of people phony information. He did it to Linda Moulton Howe. He did it to another fellow, and they worked on him so much that fellow went insane and was committed to an asylum. It was so wonderful, let me just say, it was wonderful to hear somebody else come out with this, because you are being lied to, you are being snowed. The people you're being taught to hate and blame everything on are the only people that can save us now. And can humanity make an about-face that fast? You know, the way things are now, I don't think so, but I'm at the point where I have to agree with James. Until people go 2 days without food, they're not going to get it. And that puts us on the learn through suffering track. So for folks who believe that, here it comes. Here it comes. Be ready for it. So, go ahead, Myra.
Okay, well, I'm scrolling down. There's a couple that were already answered by James. So the first one that wasn't answered, it's an anonymous person that's asked, does the final annihilation happen quickly, or will it drag out painfully over several generations?
I think you should address that, James.
It'll happen very quickly. I've told people, and I say this graphically, I've said it before in the same way, and I'll say it again, when you see the cities of the sea go into the air and leave, grab your ass, because it's the last thing you'll know.
And can you, once again, please explain what the cities of the sea are, James?
When they started dumping plutonium waste in the Atlantic Trough, your days were numbered, and to buy you time, an ET group that has a base in the Atlantic, undersea, developed a growth that is used to terraform underwater habitats on moons and planets that now have life. What this does is it can ingest plutonium waste and render it harmless. You see it, was a film that Disney and National Geographic made together where they used a number of diving bells along the Great Barrier Reef. And there, in just a very short segment along that particular structure underwater at many thousands of feet, there is just an edge of one of those cities of the sea. And it doesn't correspond to anything that you would see along the Atlantic Trough or the Great Barrier Reef. If you see, it looks like a calico blanket, only it's a red crimson color, and it's beautiful and stretches on for miles. What it does is it ingests isotopic waste, plutonium waste, whatever, and feeds on it and renders it harmless.
Where did these come from, James? And was this an attempt to buy us more time because of...
Yes.
Okay. Okay, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I talk about Utah, and this one place in Utah where I had my awakening experience. It has an underground working and has made a lot of difference in stabilizing the planet. It has EMVs down close to the mantle, and they can stabilize the Earth's crust, but there's a limit to anything and everything. And now you are failing miserably in this experiment. And I call what's going on here on Earth as an experiment because it is actually a partial manifestation. I wouldn't speak of a planet that had full manifestation as an experiment. That would be inhumane.
Of course, that's going to anger a lot of folks, but again, if they had taken the time to understand and go through our material, they would know better. They would know where to place their anger. It's not us. We didn't do it. So, yeah. Based on what you said, James, in some cases nearly 350 miles deep, is the operation in Utah still continuing and mitigating some of the damage?
Without that operation, you wouldn't last 24 hours.
All right.
The powers that be know that it's there. It's just east of the Dewey Bridge, which is above Moab, along the Little Dolores River, and just south of where this operation is the La Salle mountain range, which is circular. It's the only circular mountain range in the world. And underneath that is a base, one of these military bases that was put in place just to monitor this operation. They know it's there. Now, the locals see things going on every night. If they're in the desert there, they're prospectors and so forth. But it doesn't register.
No, and in fact, James, and I don't mean to put you on the spot about this, and you don't have to name names if you want to, but this is another example of what we've been saying. For years, James has been telling people exactly where this operation is, and they just blow him off and poo-poo him. They don't go look. They don't go look. And in fact, didn't you try to tell a UFO researcher once, and they wouldn't go look either?
Oh, yes. I had a lawyer come up from Florida. We were going to go out there. And so I had leveled and told him, since we were here and he was in my house, he asked me what happened in Sasebo Harbor that led to my getting a medical discharge from the Navy. And I told him the truth. And it boggled his mind. And he had to go. We were just on the verge of leaving. This guy, the gentleman, was a lawyer, a very, very nice guy. I had met him on UFO updates. And he wanted to go. And he had to leave. He had to go home after I told him the truth. So I looked at it this way. If he couldn't take that, he wouldn't be prepared to in that ridge valley above the river.
And this is I want to bring this up, James, before I have you read the next question from the blog. We have repeatedly talked about anomalies, the holes. I'm sure by now pretty much everyone has seen the movie, the trilogy, The Matrix. The cat walking by twice is the anomaly. It's telling you that there's something wrong with the version of reality that you have been fed. That's how you know. Okay? So all of these anomalies, the EMVs in the sun, Norman Berggren has talked about them, you've talked about them. Things in the sun, around the sun, nobody wants to look at it. And what's so sad about this is that the phony reality, the official narrative of reality that we have been fed has, and purposefully has, a glass ceiling that will not let people see the wonder, the absolute beauty and wonder of intelligent design and what's possible for us if we could just get our act together. Real reality is far more beautiful and wondrous than anything anybody could ever imagine, and you're being denied access to it. And in fact, I would have to say again that a lot of people are denying themselves access to it for reasons I can't explain. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense.
We have a question that's asked on the blog about sex. People wanted me to comment on how other cultures, off-Earth cultures, treat sex. Is it like it's treated here? Well, no. The answer is obviously no, because sex is peddled here. It's promoted. It's used. There are people that cannot take their mind off of it. People that are obsessed with it. And today, pornography is a large part of a lot of people's lives that are online. And, I don't criticize them. But, if you go on television and you watch some of these ads and you watch some of what trades as entertainment, sex is a large part of it. You can't escape it. And it's evocative and provocative both. This obsession with it and the fact that it occupies so much of the thoughts of people's minds is not healthy. There are cultures that are advanced that don't reproduce sexually, that consider sex part of a more debilitating existence than anything else and are not controlled by it. And then there are societies that are pastoral, that have come to a point where they don't want to advance technologically anymore. They're under the umbrella of the extended community, and this protects them from problems that they might have with their planet or from asteroids or anything that might harm them. They are under that protection, and they're allowed to do anything they want to do as long as they don't harm anyone. They are the closest thing to adopting a sexual appetite found here, but it's nothing like this. Sex comes in between the finer emotions too often here. It becomes an aggression.
But are you saying that their leaders and their temples aren't filled with pedophiles?
No. Children are protected. It's very easy to protect children if the policymakers aren't abusing them and committing acts of aggression of a sexual nature with children. But you see, all the loopholes that protect people from justice are devised so that the elite can get away with anything. And
that's right, and they're the ones that create the loopholes.
They're the ones that create the loopholes. There's no reason that anyone that has harmed a child intentionally should be forgiven in a court of law for any part of it. There's no reason whatsoever. There's no argument that mitigates it in any way, and this person has proven that they're dangerous to children and they need to be dealt with by whatever means is necessary to make sure that they will not continue to be a threat to children. And if we had this, then those monsters that are in power today, many of them just simply would be removed. They'd either be put where they can harm children, or they'd be done away with. You know, if you want to start with the real useless eater, do it on the basis of them being monsters, of harming children. You know, a society, a culture, a civilization that does not protect its children doesn't deserve to survive. Because children, if there's anything that we should put first, because we have the instincts to protect children. Those are native instincts. Humans have a wonderful preservation instinct to protect children. And when they lose that, they're not as good as lower animals. Because that's part of the instinct of the preservation of the species. You lose that, what the hell good are you? You're no good. And, when these things are going on, here's something I want to say is very harsh, but it's a harsh reality. And that's what we need in the alternative media, is some harsh realities.
Oh, yeah.
All these woo-wooers that talk about the spiritual deliverance and ascendance to a higher dimension and all that, that's all crap. You live in a partial manifestation because you're dangerous to the rest of the universe. And until you prove otherwise, there's no spiritual life for you.
Well, yes, I mean, clearly there's no spiritual life for us now if we're going to put up with that kind of thing, you know.
I want to qualify that before I turn it over to you, Crystal, because I want to say this. You have a soul. You have a precious soul. Everyone here has a precious soul. And at death, that unites with the mind and becomes spirit. And you will all go to the same place. And it'll be wondrous and wonderful. But to talk about, it's disgusting for me to hear these people go on and on about spiritual life and spiritual understanding and ascendance here.
With nary a mention of morality ever.
Yes.
Avoid it.
Well, our bravery, our courage, it is nothing but an escape from being accountable for having no courage to do anything about the evil that is around us. It's disgusting, and you cannot use spirituality to hide from the truth. Spirituality occurs when you have done everything you can do to achieve whatever you're after, and you resign yourself to an outcome, like a prayer. And then, usually something will happen. And that's as close as it gets here on this planet.
Yes, it's very perplexing to see people pay all of these gurus to teach them how to ascend to a fifth dimension. I can understand going to a conference of a self-made millionaire who's going to, sell you, teach you some of his secrets and sell you the book on the rest. Well, he's actually done it. So I can see paying someone to teach you how to do something that they've already done. These people haven't been to a fifth dimension. It's ludicrous. It's an escape. It's their escape clause. So they don't have to deal with reality. Meanwhile, the rest of us are going to get caught up in a vortex of cowardice that's really ugly, and we don't all deserve it. But it's coming. If people can't find a way to do what's right, there's no other outcome. That's important. Myra, did you have anything you wanted to add?
With the extended community, and you talk about the partial manifestation that you were saying earlier, James, how do they view us at this point in time when we are so very, very close to the brink?
It's an experiment because you're partially manifested. You've been partially manifested ever since your timeline was tampered with.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that's said along with the kind of woo-woo crowd, that they talk about us being co-creators of our reality. In other words, our minds play a part in creating this reality. So what you're saying is that our reality is partially manifested. What I'm trying to question or put forward is that,
let me say this, Mara, co-creation. This is another catchphrase. It's thrown out there by someone that wants a novel twist to attract attention, to earn more money, or to get a speaking engagement or whatever. It's a crock of crap. You earn the truth, and the truth is very important, and without it, everything else is imagination. There's so few people that expend the effort to learn penetrating truths, to put things together. There's a host of anomaly all around us. These anomaly, if addressed, are the clue to the next step up. Mm-hmm. Astrophysicists and other scientists today avoid them like crazy because they challenge them. They avoid methods of pursuing the truth. When you don't have all the facts, you take what information you have and you submit it to statistical analysis, and that way you can determine likelihood, sometimes up to the point of inevitability, with probability. But the scientists don't do that because it's too uncomfortable. They like to possess a theory. They like to have a dissertation or a thesis that projects a possibility. And, they may spend the rest of their career in physics or chemistry or whatever trying to prove that that theory has some value, has some truth to it or whatever. They get stuck in that groove. It's like a needle on a record that gets stuck over and over again, and they don't grow. And this is the worst possible outcome to most of the people in the cottage industry of the alternative media, whether it's ufology or whether it's alternative energy or whatever. It's not that they don't know how to sell themselves. They don't know how to create something that they can prevent from keeping them from growing. We're not needles on a phonograph that get stuck on a record. We shouldn't be. We should continue growing all our life and learning. But, when you have scientists and doctors, medical doctors, that don't do it, you don't have a model that inspires you to do it either. And this is most people's plight. I think a lot of people have experiences with these so-called authorities that is disgusting and which causes them to lose their faith in determinism, that there is any truth, that there is anything to discover, that there is anything that cares. And so they fall into the entertainment deal where they just become absorbed by fictions.
Yes, that's very, very true. Although I would like to add, most of the time when you hear the co-creative version, it's the woo-wooers. Well, if you just raise your vibration or if you just meditate.
Yeah.
But it is important, I think, to point out that in a real sense, in a real reality sense, we are co-creators of our own reality because we have choice. We have free will. You hear all of these nincompoops talk about, your personal power. Your free will and your ability to choose what's right for you is that power. And so they talk about a mythical power that you don't have and get you spinning and chasing your tail doing that instead of using the power you do have.
I would just call that, Crystal, I would just call that creativity. Not this co-creativity. I mean, that's a catchphrase. But creativity is what people that invent new things, that come up with new ideas, new stories. Because I'm very fond of some of the creative fiction that we find. We're always talking about series and things that we've watched that we're interested in because especially when they're relevant, especially when they touch on truths we're not getting through the media, but we know we're there.
Yeah, it's very true. So many things that could have had real substance in their meanings have been so distorted and destroyed by the New Age community that I personally don't even want to touch those phrases myself with a 10-foot pole anymore. What people think they mean and what they should mean aren't the same thing anymore, which is another part of the problem that we have. But I want people to recognize, you have to understand This country was founded by people. Your courts, your constitution, your bridges, your roads, your hospitals, people did that. We have all contributed to what's going on here, and this is what we have to recognize, because we're still contributing to what's going on here, even if we aren't doing anything to change it. People think, well, if I don't make a choice, I'm cool. No, there's no fence. You're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. There's no fence to sit on.
Yeah, no choice is a choice.
That's right. Absolutely. All right. Well, so how about if we do this? I'll have Dave give out the telephone number that people can call in. We'll keep reading the questions in between calls. Does that sound good to you guys?
Sounds like a deal to me.
All right, Dave, would you mind giving out the phone number, and then you can answer more questions?
First of all, I'd like to answer the question you'd like to ask me.
Do you know what it is?
No.
Okay, I'll tell you what it is. Are you ready?
Yes.
This comes from Carl, and he said, Crystal, how do you, James, and Dave distinguish disinformation agents from those committed to truth? If Dave is willing to elaborate on his experience with Camelot, that would be nice, too. Did you open up a can of worms, Dave?
Not really. Camelot's rather easy because there's a guy named Jack Burns who is Carrie's handler. And you have to be very careful because every show she does is about her.
Yeah.
And that's all that I would like to say about that.
I think that's plenty. And how do you, Dave, distinguish disinformation agents from those committed to the truth?
That's an interesting question, but I have to answer that like this. There are some people out there, part of what they say resonates within my heart and part of it doesn't. Tonight, this show is filling me, which is boggling me all over. There's nothing but truth on this show. Nothing but truth. And if people don't like it, too bad. And I just wish you would do a show at least once a month. And ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to call in, the number is 1-702-879-4770. That's 702-879-4770.
Thank you, Dave. As far as I recall, you only have the one line in, is that right?
Yes, but he can handle multiple calls.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. All right. So, okay, that's great. Okay, so going back to the question we asked before the show, how do we distinguish disinformation agents from those committed to the truth? I'll answer this, and then James can add his his 2 cents to it. But we've actually explained this before. When you understand that life on this planet absolutely requires a fundamental understanding of intelligent design, from that point you can begin to understand. They have weaponized creation and turned it in on itself. They're killing nature to kill us. When you understand that and you understand where it goes, this is what chemtrails, GMOs, vaccines, Fukushima, that's what all of this is about. Those are the only things that matter to our survival, is getting back to a world that will continue to support, uphold, regenerate, protect, and recreate life. Now, of course, when you pan the camera out, you find that you've got severe corruption within all of the financial institutions, with really in every institution on this planet. I mean, I've worked in so many different fields, and it's everywhere. The money is a problem, but this is the thing. You can count the problems that we have on 2 hands and probably not use all of the digits. The way I personally determine whether or not a person is a disinformation agent depends on 2 things: their understanding of these issues and where they lead if we don't stop them, and their inability or resistance to talking about those issues. When people won't talk about what matters most, they can't help us. Whether it's by hook or by crook, they have nothing to contribute to the solution. And sometimes it's difficult to tell if a person is just in denial or if it is a paid disinformation agent, because the patterns are similar. Although disinformation agents have a tendency to attack you personally, not the facts. That's a big red flag for me. What about you, James?
Well, they'll never talk about anything specific because they're afraid that you'll say something they don't want said. That's the reason I've been on a number of shows, and I've been talking about what we're talking about tonight for 4 years. And I've never had any professional, scientist or otherwise, try to refute me. Not a single time. I have had once or twice someone would call in with something nasty to say, but it wouldn't address a specific. It wouldn't be anything that could be discussed. It was just like, oh, you're just full of shit, or how can you say things like that, and so forth. Never address a single point that I can discuss with them. This I call as a hit artist. There's malinformation. Malinformation is a type of disinformation that has an objective or some malicious agenda behind it. It has a purpose. It has a point, a delivery of something behind it, like a Satanist agenda. Someone is trying to put you in a position to appear like you're a fundamentalist so they can discredit that. And most of the problems deal with people that don't want to be accountable or don't want to show that you could be accountable for any of the things you say, so they'll be overly generalized, they will be always nonspecific, and they will try to limit you. And when you start to get into anything, they will come up with an emotional attack on you.
Yeah, they derail any serious discussion about the important issues, and then they follow it up or simultaneously use personal attacks. Yeah. Did you want to add something to that, Myra?
I think it's important to, if you're engaging with these people on Facebook or somewhere like that, the minute you pick up on that, just walk away. Do not engage them in any way, shape, or form. I speak from experience because I've tried, and you're wasting your energy, and it's exactly what they want. Exactly what they want. So as soon as you pick up on it, you walk away. And it's a great education for your intuition and your spidey senses. Because once you spot people like that, that's it. You see them everywhere. They follow a certain pattern.
Yes, the pattern.
Once you see that, it's like, woo, the wee flag goes up, and you feel good about yourself because you're thinking, you're actually going to make a difference with your information because they're hitting on you. They don't want you to get that out. So once you notice it, then you get stronger each time. And you see it in the alternative media itself. Quite a few of them will use NLP as well. I don't know if we mentioned that or whether that's relevant to this question, but I think it is, having had personal experience of that.
Oh, Myra, most of it occurs in the alternative media. It doesn't occur out there anywhere near the mass media. It occurs in the alternative media. When Dr. Berggren wrote his book and started discussing what he had found in the rings of Saturn, it wasn't any of his colleagues. He was a scientist, a scientist of exceptional repute. And his colleagues never tried to debunk him. It was ufologists that went after him.
Yeah.
And they would never discuss any of the points that he made. They wouldn't read the book. But it stole their thunder. Anything of this magnificence, of this size, any of this capability, just stole their thunder. And so, it couldn't be. They were in competition with it. And of course, I'm talking about the cottage industry because ufology has certain figureheads that speak for the rest of the whole genre. And they don't do a very good job. They haven't advanced ufology in 60 years. They keep spinning around in their theories and in their limitations and go nowhere. But of course, that's exactly what the Air Force, and that's exactly what the people that are devoted to suppressing information in this area want. Of course, any of these people retire or die, we find out that they're in military intelligence. And there have been a number of them that this was true.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I have to reiterate, people should watch that film. It's $7. If you Google The Mirage Men, you'll find it, because you have one of these people who's still alive admitting that that was his job. He was paid by the OSI to infiltrate the UFO community and feed them crap and muddy the waters, and he did. And he is by no means the only one. But here's the other thing you have to keep in mind. A paid liar, someone who has no problem doing that for a living, there's no end to it. So I thought it was really interesting in the film that he talked about some other people having been infiltrated and denying he had anything to do with it. But the two filmmakers who produced this film used his IP address to track it back to him and know that it was him. And another interesting thing in this film that I have never, ever heard anyone in the alternative community talk about is the fact that the cow mutilations, these cows were doped with a drug we make here on this planet. So people should watch it, because we're not the only ones who know what's going on here. I'm just glad that somebody else is finally speaking out about it. It's a good film. I recommend it.
I find it interesting that you mentioned Linda Moulton Howe. I had a long conversation with her on the phone once about something I discovered in Ohio. I lived there about a year and a half. Where I was living, the land was being condemned for a lake, Caesars Creek Reservoir. So I had access to all this land, and it was in the heart of where the Adena and Hopewell mound builder cultures were. And I was doing a lot of work on cataloging village sites, earthworks that hadn't been cataloged, because they're going to be underwater. This one place where this gentleman had a number of ponies, I kept finding these mutilated ponies. Every once in a while there'd be a steer. But I was trying to tell her about this, and she was in her crop circle phase, so she wasn't interested. But I said, Linda, as far as I know, this is the first time this has ever come out. I got to be very close friends with this fella that owned the land. And I kept finding these mutilated ponies, a typical mutilation where they had cored out the rectum, where they had cored out part of the side of the face and removed the tongue through it. All of this, and I said, why aren't you upset about this? I mean, one of these was a thoroughbred pony. I said, that horse got to be worth $700 or $800 at least. And he said, well, somebody from the state gave me a phone number to call. And when I lose one, I call this number and somebody comes out and pays me, and they pay me well. But I don't tell anybody. I'm not supposed to tell anybody, but you and I are friends, so I'm telling you. And I told Linda this, and she wasn't interested at all. It blew me away. I mean, my God, woman.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to wonder what goes through people's minds sometimes. And the reason James brought her up is that we've talked privately about the film, and Linda Moulton Howe was in the film with Doty, the OSI agent, admitting that he had given her false information, which she in turn took to the UFO community and spread. And one of the envelopes he gave her, she talks, this one part of the film, she talks about how she went to the last page, and it talked about how the evolution of human beings had been solved and that we were created by other beings. And from there she says, well, that means we're androids. And I thought, what the hell? How did you get from that to an android? It's weird and bizarre and pathetic, and it's time to grow up. We're either going to grow up or perish. So.
Well, Crystal, they're always looking for a new twist. It's like, a theater has a marquee. And, of course, a movie comes in and they put the new poster up for that movie, and that's the attraction. And if they didn't change the movie, they would soon lose their audience and their livelihood, wouldn't they? Well, the same way is true with the cottage industry. They've got to give things a new twist, and they don't care whether it's legitimate or not, as long as it'll sell that next book or it'll get them where they want to go with the lecture tour or whatever. And that's the pathetic situation that ufology has fallen into, And MUFON is interesting. All these people that volunteer to work for MUFON for years and years and years would send their UFO reports in, and then they wouldn't get a copy of them. They'd go into some file somewhere, and they wouldn't be shared with anyone else. So this information was shared only with the government agencies, never got out to other ufologists who were trying to put something together to get an overview. And that's what was lacking in ufology, an overview. A way of putting together the types of experiences people were having and what they were seeing, the kind of crafts, whether they were landing, whether there was a saucer bed or not, what residue was in the saucer bed, what kind of agitation it might have created in the water if they were submerged. All of these things could have created enough data, enough information to obtain an overview, which has never been done. And it's never been done because the only network that's ever existed was MUFON, and it was corrupted to begin with.
Yeah, and that's what's so great about this film is that you have Dodi, the agent, admitting that he gave her phony, falsified information so that she would take it back and muddy the waters in the UFO community. And what was in that information? Human beings were created by another race. Now people know where it came from. That's where it came from. Okay? So, all right. So, are you guys ready to get back to questions? The questions that people wrote in?
Yeah, do you want me to?
Yeah.
I've been trying to scroll through because some of them we've kind of addressed in what we've been talking about. There was a bit of a discussion went on the blog. There was one from Pixie Girl, and she says you're absolutely wonderful, so I'm going to ask her a question because she said you're wonderful. Thank you so much for opening up your show for questions. As a matter of fact, I'd love to know yours and Crystal's take on the satanic agenda, the rituals, demon possession, possible merging of dimensions with CERN, etc. She says this has been on her mind a couple of months. And thank you for your consideration. So,
do you want to start with that one, James?
When one understands that reality is not enough for people that are competing with God, for instance, and this is the reason for Lucifer and Satan, extracted from mythology as fallen hosts. But to a Satanist who has the arrogance to compete with God, they want to turn everything that is professed of godhood on its head. And of course, there are people that talk about how this is a challenge of man, and that Prometheus, that is akin to Lucifer as a light giver, taken Lucifer, a fallen host, and tried to make him into a Promethean servant of mankind, which is another corruption, as one corruption after another. Satanism is a way of ridding your conscience of guilt. And it is also a way of saying that, I'm setting myself apart as equal with God. There is nothing finer in the universe than me. Therefore, I am worthy of every privilege and every excess and any indulgence I wish. And once a person has gotten into this delusion, they are proverbially lost. And there are a lot of them. There are more than you might think. But many of these head artists, I think that if I wanted to name them for what they really are, I would call them supreme cynics. They have a problem with anything that is beyond them because they want to believe there's nothing finer in the universe than them. So that's their starting point off into this delusion.
Yes, that's very well said. And in fact, I've written about this myself in the second book, which is, it's somewhat fiction. I prefer to call it friction, but that particular category doesn't actually exist. So, but yes, they want to prove that they're in control of creation, that they know what, and this is what, it's so awful But it's so simple and it's so true. This mentality is what causes our extinction episodes. Because when you approach intelligent design and creation with that mindset, it no longer is creation, it's destruction. So these people have decoded intelligent design. They know how it all works, but they're not teaching you how it works because they're weaponizing it and using it against you. That's why you're not being told. This is the beginning of where the dumbing down process came from. Because if you knew how it worked, you would know right away when they're messing with it in ways that we won't survive. The psychopathy involved in this is so extreme, it wipes out entire civilizations. 6 times this has happened. And this is the part that nobody wants to talk about. And this is why so many people are drawn to the New Age coward corner. Well, if I just sit around and meditate, it'll be hunky-dory. No, it won't. These people have to be removed from the buttons. Because if they aren't, they're going to keep pushing it, and we can't survive that.
You know, it would have been unthinkable 10 years ago for world leaders to talk about World War III, but they are now. Mm-hmm. And this regime that we have in Washington today, I can't imagine it being any worse. I can't imagine it being any more lawless, any more corrupt, any more of a psychopathy. I mean, Eric Holder can try to intimidate a Republican or intimidate a representative who's asking him an honest question. Well, you don't want to go there, buddy. What the devil? You know, this man is a traitor. He's treasonous. He's broken the law every way that's imaginable, selling guns, assault weapons to the worst drug mob in Mexico to bring back across the border and to use on American citizens in house-to-house search and seizures.
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't get any worse than that, folks. It doesn't get any worse than that.
Yeah, it's, you know, and the thing about it is that they are so in your face with it. I mean, did everybody forget what happened at the London Olympics? The giant dead baby? I mean, my God, it was so... this is the thing. I mean, this is one of the reasons that we're not going to spend time doing these shows anymore. In the age of information, ignorance is a choice.
Well, you have the Georgie Guidestones. You have the Illuminati playing card set. You have the murals at the Denver International Airport. All in your face.
Yeah, and even Bitcoin. You know, this is so sad, and I've posted this so many times. Bitcoin was created by DARPA, and we have explained repeatedly what social engineering and perception management are and what they do. And what they do is they seed certain ideas into the collective, and then you come out and say, oh, look, this was my idea. They have you agreeing to go exactly where they want you to go and believe that it was your own idea. All anybody has to do to understand where this is going is read their literature. We have, in other shows, we've talked about the book written by Eric Schmidt and Jared Cohen called The New Digital Age, in which they predefined 3 new classes of people. And that right away should tell people that in no way do they plan to use this technology to remove class warfare and make life better for everyone. They're going to use it the way they want to use it, to maintain their own power and supremacy over everyone else. And it even says in the book, they're people the government doesn't like will be cut off. We know that they want a digital currency. They want complete control over your lives. So you have all these people saying, oh, look, I've come up with this new cryptocurrency and it's digital. And they think that that it was their own idea and that it's actually worth something and it's going to save them. No, it's not. That's where they want you to go. And you're going there. Willingly.
Well, you know, I have waited a long time for people to come to the conclusion of what they mean when they're talking about these corporations and banks that are too big to fail. If you turn that around to what it means, what they're saying is, and we're too big to be held to the law. They're talking about themselves.
Yeah, that's
we're
right.
Too big to be held to the law. Obama thinks he is too big to be held to the law. Eric Holder, too big to be held to the law. Hillary Clinton, too big to be held to the law. Hell, bring them down, folks. Bring them down.
Our survival depends on it. It has to happen. It has to happen. So, all right. So I think it's my turn. I think it's my turn to ask the next question. This came from a fellow named Jerry. He said, recently Oxfam published a since gone viral report which pointed out that 85 individuals possess as much wealth as 3.5 billion of the world's people. Has any person or group published the names of those 85? I've not seen the list specifically myself, but at the same time, it's somewhat irrelevant when your own local judges and police are crooked.
Yeah, well, that's where the problem is. The problem is not so much it is cartels mostly, but I wouldn't say there are 85. When you understand that the elite observe primogeniture, they put all of the wealth in the hands of the eldest son, just like in feudal times, so that all that wealth can be leveraged to the maximum. And in the cartels, a cartel is an entire industry that is controlled by one family. Platinum is a cartel. Rubber
unelected. All these people are unelected. That's important. That's what you mean by primogenitor.
They've established themselves where they fix prices. You know, they have developed the science of being able to destroy competition by fixing prices so that no one can come in to that industry that doesn't serve them. Diamond industry is the De Beers. Platinum is the Liechtensteins, and on and on and on.
James, I want to interrupt you very quickly because this is something that you've said before, but I want to emphasize why it's so important, especially for platinum. When people don't understand that there is an abundance of all of these things, gold, diamonds, platinum, but they don't want you to know that. And it's the same mentality behind the lie of peak oil, because how do you drive up the price? Scarcity. So they have to have you believe that it's scarce so that they can charge the prices that they're charging. But if people knew that, they wouldn't buy this bullshit of, well, we're going to send people to the moon to mine for, platinum because we don't have enough here. It's absurd.
Well, whether or not there is such a point of peak oil, and eventually there would be, that's not the real problem. The problem is the damage that's being done to the crust by the extraction of oil. You've got sinkholes, you have an increase in deep earthquakes, you have a number of other things that are associated.
You have a caller from the 831 area.
All right. Do you want to put them on?
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, am I on?
You're on.
Yes.
I would like to hear about the EMVs, and I wish you would reconsider doing a show once a month. I mean, I only just discovered you, 10 weeks ago.
Have you looked at the blog?
No, I haven't taken enough time. I'm just getting my brain back. I don't know. I was on oxygen for a long time. I'm just getting my, working brain is coming back more, and I'm very, very passionate about saving the earth, stopping rape, and saving the herbs, and I'm not giving up. So you guys sound like you've given up.
What happened to you?
Well, I had grief, and it caused, you really don't want to hear my story, dear, now. I'll tell you some other time when you have an hour or two.
Right.
What happened to me? A lot. I'm better now. I've had surgery. I don't recommend surgery, but I've got my lungs back. I'm not on oxygen anymore, and I'm taking a product that's making me younger, and I don't want to talk anymore.
Well,
I'll never shut up.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for calling.
I'm Judith. Thank you. Can we talk about the EMVs?
Judith, can I just interject here? Judith, it was me that asked you to call in. Can I just say that there is a lot of information with regards to EMVs on the blog, and I don't really think we have time to go into it tonight because it's such an expansive subject. What I will do is I will communicate with you separately from this show, and I will give you as much information that you could possibly need with regards to EMVs. Okay. And if you have any questions, then you can quite happily send them to me, and I will pass them on to James for you.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Judith.
Doris, you had a question you wanted to ask?
I did actually, yes. It's from our friend Ross, who is a very good friend of all of ours.
Yes,
and
he is.
Yes, he is. So I'm going to ask Ross this question. He says, James, you've said on previous shows and interviews that if Earth doesn't get over the hump, Spirit won't retain the memories of a failed experiment. Is that for every failed experiment or just this one? So do Spirit retain any knowledge and memories of the past lineages on Earth? And should Earth in this alternate timeline be destroyed in one way or another, will Earth in the unaltered timeline be destroyed also, or will they be unharmed?
They will be unharmed. I don't know where the fantasy of parallel timelines emerged, parallel universes and so forth. There's no reason for that. You have alternate timelines, you have partial manifestations. That's not entirely the same thing. This comes from a damaged timeline, a damaged continuum, and they're repaired. When something happens that is interesting, it is kept going to see if it can grow, that if it can offer the universe something new, something perfectible. And that's what's going on here. That's an experiment. It's like I said, it's inhumane to look at a natural...
Dave, it's Carl.
We also have a caller from 714 area.
Hello there. You surprised us. What's your name?
My name's Carl. I'm the one whose blog you read earlier about Camelot. I hear your appeal, and I'm grateful for your appeal. And I'm like you, connected with the information and interested in reality rather than the fantasy that most people are dwelling in. But I'm not sure that I'm clear who your appeal is to, because we're confronted by people like like Obama and Putin, and we're not in a position to do something about them other than grab our pitchforks and knives and run off to Washington. So I'm not real clear on, who your appeal is directed at.
Well, what you said is very, very true. It's very true, and I think this is what's confusing people, because people say, well, we learn through suffering. Yeah, apparently not, because we've been through this before, haven't we? We have people in power that we pay to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and there are checks and balances in place. For too long, we look the other way, and corruption is a cancer, and it has spread, and it has spread so far, so fast, that we are in a very, very bad situation. People didn't want to get involved. They didn't want to do anything. They wanted to sit around and meditate and raise their vibration, and now we're in really big trouble. There are pivotal moments, many pivotal moments that have come and gone over time in which we could have fixed everything. Major changes could have been made. They have come and gone. And so now what you said is actually, that's plan B. Plan A is people do what they know is right, and they uphold their oaths of office. And the moment we see them waver one iota, we get involved and we stop them. We didn't do that. So now we're on plan B. This is what's unfolding at this ranch in Nevada right now. If people in positions of authority and in positions of the checks and balances of those authorities do not do their job, we're going to have a repeat of something that we've seen before. That's true.
There are a number of things that can happen. Take the Bundy Ranch, for instance. What they can do is these militia that have been holding back, have gone underground. It's time for them to come up. It's time for them to make an appearance and to stand up against this encroachment with whatever force they have. There's nothing to lose at this point. It's just that bad. You do not know what kind of support is on the inside of the military, on the inside of even government agencies, until there's a resistance on the outside that can support them. They're not going to commit suicide when there's no support. Look at the generals and the admiral that stood up against the use of nuclear warheads in Charleston. I hope you're familiar with that. Yeah. That happened. That's an example. Now, one of the things people forget is that human nature is both good and bad. And there are people in the military that every time they fire or they effect a purge of leadership that won't get in the bed with Obama, every time they do that, they polarize men and women that are in some key positions in the military, and there comes a point where you don't owe the truth to a liar. So that if they come up and they said, will you fire on American citizens if you're told to? And they say, yeah, when they don't, then when they really won't, but they don't want to be left out. They want to be there and in a position to do something good when the time comes.
But have they corrupted themselves by saying that they will when they won't?
No. They haven't corrupted themselves. That's just the point. You don't owe a liar the truth.
No, I'm sorry. Okay, I see what you're saying.
You don't owe that dirtbag in Washington the truth. He's a liar.
Yeah. But I have to betray my own integrity in order to maintain the lie.
You're not betraying. No, you're not. You're surviving. You know, let's look at it this way. If you're in the military or if you're in any public office, you have sworn a vow to uphold and protect and defend the Constitution. That comes first.
With respect, my own integrity comes first. Because without my own integrity, I can't uphold the Constitution.
Not if it's suicidal. You don't owe a liar the truth.
I agree.
Maybe look at it this way, Carl. We owe a debt of gratitude to all of these folks who are being asked, will you kill your fellow man if we ask you to take their guns? Them saying, yes, I will, when they know they won't when the time comes, ensures that the military the Obama regime is using isn't trustworthy. And we need to know that there are people on the inside that when the time comes will do the right thing. Imagine if everyone was honest and said, oh, hell no, I won't, and they all got kicked out. He's going to clean house and have himself a real army, isn't he?
No, I understand your point, and I'm not disagreeing with your logic. I'm just telling you my own integrity is part of that equation. And I agree with what you're saying about deceiving a deceiver, but I become the deceiver when I deceive the deceiver.
No, you don't. No, you don't. This is a matter of survival.
Yes, survival.
You were doing what you can to protect your family. You have been put at odds with the truth by a liar.
Well, I'm clear about your thinking, and I get your thinking, and I'm not disagreeing with it. It's logical, and you're correct. Okay. So I don't know that pursuing it further is going to get me to shift or you to shift. I'm just giving you the answer that I have.
Well, I know that you are, but I am, for the sake of the listeners, holding a stance that I believe applies over years. It's a values judgment, and I understand where you're coming from, and I think there are probably a lot of good people out there that share that with you. But I hope there's a lot that share mine too.
Yeah.
So you're not a bad guy because you feel that. And I wouldn't in a million years try to make...
I'm not taking it that way at all. I completely understand that we have two takes on the same issue.
Yeah. Well, that's being human, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I know that if it came down to brass tacks and you had to do what you had to do and provide for your family, you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, got to do what you got to do.
That's what's important. That's what's important.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, Carl. I appreciate your call.
I'll talk to both of you again.
Good. I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Bye-bye.
Yeah, decisions are going to get harder from here on out because the right decisions weren't made early on. The longer we wait to do the right thing, the harder it gets. And people
the harder it gets, the harder. You know, I don't look on myself as part of the equation because I'm an outsider. It's far more important to me to hear your opinion, to hear Carl's opinion, to hear Merritt's, and to hear Torres's. It's far more important because you're here. You are members. I am kind of a ragtagger.
Yeah, you know, the way I look at this, James, is that you don't give your enemy the rope to hang you with.
No.
You just don't.
No, you don't. Well, the highest authority that we should owe to is our children. And if you do that, you can't go wrong.
Yes, I agree with that. I mean, and you know, we've talked about this privately because it's important to you to explain to people that we do have an immortal soul. And while this experiment may end, we don't end. And I totally understand that. I really do. I've written about that a lot before. But as a mother, in no way am I willing to lay down and accept that as the only viable solution to our problems. I can't do it.
Yeah. Oh, of course. My greatest concern is to find out if the beauty that is bestowed upon the split consciousness is survivable. If it can break loose, unchain itself from slavery, both wage slavery and actual slavery that...
Mental slavery?
Yes. You know, the greatest thing a person can own outside of their children is leisure time. And most people are denied that, and they have their nose to the grindstone trying to earn a retirement or a nest egg or provide for their family. And when the time comes to retire, they haven't been able to grow in this cocoon. And so they come out, they're not the beautiful butterfly. You know, they've been under the drudgery of servitude for money. And they come out, they don't know the value of leisure time. And so, you know, they may have a hobby, they may just have a death wish. And I saw that in my stepfather, who I have much high regard for. He died before he actually retired from working for General Dynamics, 35 years. He died the day that my mother would get the greatest benefit from his retirement. I mean, that's the kind of man he was. Strong-willed, a beautiful human. And I miss him more than I miss my own mother.
Yeah. I would like for you, if you wouldn't mind, James, in just a moment, to explain why the split consciousness humans are so different and so unique. But before that, I want to go back to what Judith said when she called in, and I really appreciate you calling in, Judith. James and I and Myrid haven't given up. And that's important to know. The reason that we're not doing these shows anymore isn't because we've given up. It's because everything important that needs to be said has already been said. And I understand that a lot of people, like I said in the beginning, the number of people watching our videos is going up, the number of people coming to our blogs is going up. This isn't a plea for more attention. The point is, everything that people need to know to understand what has to be done, we have already said. And I have a family. We have lives of our own. People don't understand how much time this takes. And how hard it is. And we have stuck our neck out. I don't think people realize that either. We have really pushed the envelope in ways that really could have got us in a lot of trouble, but we did it anyway because we love you and your children, and we want to see you persist. But that's where our role in your individual lives ends. We can't make you do anything. All we can do, just like I do with my own son, I give him the information he needs to make the right choices, but in the end, they're his choices. After he has what he needs to know to make that choice, that's where my ability as a mother ends. People are individuals. People have to begin to make their own choices. We've given everything that we can of ourselves. I mean, when I went to write my second book, I told my son I was going to write it. He cried because it takes so much time to do that. We are in a position now where so many people have looked the other way that we have to worry about our own families now. I put Team Earth, my extended family, before my own family for a decade. I thought it would go farther and come out better than it did. I need to go back to my own family now and protect them from the people that decided they didn't need to do anything. That's the reality of our situation.
Crystal is not exaggerating. When I met Crystal, she was a popular writer, had successfully published 2 books. She was well thought of, had a large following, and had achieved influence over her readership. She grew in ways that people in the cottage industry don't grow, and looked at things that other people were not willing to look at. And we became close friends. But there are things that I don't discuss with her that I would, if I was standing face to face with her, I would. That's the way things are on this planet. If you can maintain deniability, you're safe. If you can't, and you have significant things to offer, you're either brought under the control of the power brokers, or you're in a dangerous situation. And Crystal understands that.
Yes, absolutely. We have done everything we can for the other people on this planet. We have given everything we have to give you. Everything we have. Our blood, our sweat, our tears, our time. We have given you everything. What you do with it, we aren't in charge of. But it would really be nice if people would do something with it. So, anyway, all right.
It is nearing a point. You know, I've talked about this for 4 years, and I've said this over and over again from the very first show I ever did, that this would soon become a planet where no one would wish to live. No one. I think now there are many people that are beginning to see that as a possibility for the near future. And it doesn't pertain to just working class or middle class. It is diminishing. It pertains to everyone. The underground buildings and structures that are to house the elite in time of crisis, those are going to be disturbed just as much from this unstable crust, Earth's crust, as anywhere else, in fact, first. And they wouldn't have been able to sustain to this point if it wasn't for the EMVs that are operating there in Utah. When they're gone, you can imagine what's going to happen.
I think that, you know, having a grasp of what these EMVs are and what they do, from that perspective, an individual comes to understand that we are loved and appreciated by forces at work that we don't even understand, that will do more to ensure we survive than we will do for ourselves. That's how loved we are. That's really kind of sad, you know? I appreciate that they do it. I just wish that a human being would care as much as these entities do. You know?
That's a very profound statement, Crystal, and one that people really need to understand. That was amazing what you just said. Thank you.
Well, it's one of the things that kept me interested in James's work, because I'd been steered a completely different way. I'd been introduced to Crystal's work. I've talked about this before. It was a group of people that were nefarious, were cult-like, that used love bombing, that used every technique available to them that they could get away with online. I didn't address or meet them personally. I spoke to one of them on Skype. But it was Crystal's first book that they gave me, but then immediately taught against that. Once I got interested in it, intrigued, and thought, she's really onto something. She's bringing together research that other researchers are not addressing or combining. In other words, she was joining the dots. So when I contacted her after some time and told her about this group, because I had to kind of deprogram myself from that, and that takes time, and there was no way I was going to go back to that, ever. I contacted her, and thankfully she introduced me to James's work, and it just completely popped in my head. I thought, yeah, absolutely, that's the truth, because that's what they want to hide from you. They work so hard to hide the wonder from you. That's what you need to think about. Every time you go on Facebook and some idiot is telling you you're going to have to just raise your vibration, they are talking bullshit. I'm sorry to be so prosaic here with my language, but, you know, maybe that will actually have an effect, because I'm not giving up. I just want to add to what Crystal said just there. I'm certainly not giving up. On behalf of the EMVs, I'm shaking my fist with them. I'm saying, I'm here, guys. I'm still fighting on, no matter what. And I'm here on my own in my little house. And it's like, I'm not giving up. I'm just frustrated. I'm really frustrated and tired. If something happened and James wanted to do a show, I'd be happy to do it with him in order to support Crystal, because I know Crystal needs to do what she needs to do. And, I'm happy to step forward and do that, but we've not given up. It's important that people realise that.
I'd like to explain, Crystal and I did a show on refining cosmology. What I'd like to point to is that there are several things that astrophysics does not touch upon. They don't try to even explain how a star can burn for billions of years. And so they can't imagine how the fusion star, like our sun, can deliver energy to the Earth without scorching it from time to time. And the explanation for that is very simple. That energy that sun is delivering, whether it's a solar storm, a coronal mass ejection, solar flare, or whatever, is controlled. It's farmed. F-A-R-M-E-D. That energy is farmed. Any star that's in a system where there are planets that are supporting complex life has to be managed. Otherwise, periodically, on Earth, it would amount to every 17 years, the Earth and other planets in proximity to the Sun, like Mercury, would be scorched. Turned into a cinder. That doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen because there are forces at work, in this case the EMVs, that farm that energy and keep it at a constant level so that you have health, duration on Earth and other planets that are associated with the same principle to reach civilizations for intelligent life to grow to maturation and produce the best of what it can be. And
that's really important, James. Before you go on, I want to point that out. This is something that people don't take the time to consider because it has not come from their institutions and their television shows. In order for a civilization to progress and advance, there has to be some kind of consistency. You can't have, this was the problem I had with people saying, oh, we're all going to die in 2012. Why would you believe that? Why would you believe that a creator, whoever and whatever it is, would go through all this trouble to give you everything you need to have this experience and then just snap a finger and say, well, I'm bored? It doesn't work like that. People have no idea how much goes into protecting life. And for a civilization to progress and grow and evolve, you can't have a planet that's going to flip poles every 6 months. There has to be some kind of uniformity going on. I think that's really important, James. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make that point.
Well, it's a cosmic reality. I've never heard an astrophysicist or an astronomer try to explain how suns and planets and moons are round. What makes them round? Why would they be round? What's the benefit of them being round? Well, that's the only way you achieve constant gravity.
Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. So,
and they have speculated about gravity wave now for 40 years, but they've never enunciated its meaning or what it affects or where it comes from or anything, and I have.
That's right.
I've gone into detail about a number of things. Why, in all of our solar system, what is the oldest body? It's the moon.
The moon.
Now, why would it be older than all our planets and the moons of Jupiter and so forth? And how would they know it? How would they know that? It's interesting that people know that the moon landing, as it was introduced back in the 60s, was falsified. It was created to put America in a better light because there were other countries getting ahead of us in our space age. We did get to the moon, but we didn't get to the moon on a Roman candle. There are people that know that we had bases on the moon and on Mars. There are people that know that, but they don't appreciate the fact that we didn't get there on our own.
Yes, and we, again, I mean, we have explained this too. And that's the thing, and I want to make this point. I tried once in another show, and my Skype connection got dropped. But if people go back and look at other shows that we've done from a year or two ago, maybe even 3 years ago now, you'll find people making comments on the YouTube videos of how hard they have tried to get us on the big shows in the alternative media, including Coast to Coast and Red Ice, and they even went so far as to put the email addresses of those producers in the comment sections and encourage people to contact these people. These people know who we are. They won't touch us with a 10-foot pole, and they won't touch us with a 10-foot pole because we're telling you the truth. And they aren't.
And can I also just interject also, sorry to interrupt you, Crystal, we don't charge for any of our information. Everything that we do for free, and it's like you said, we give up time, energy, spit, blood, tears, you name it. We never charge for anything, and that should tell people everything that they need to know right from the standpoint.
Yeah, and when I said tears, I meant it. You have no idea what it's like to be an individual on this planet who for 10 years has lived knowing we are on the verge of self-destruction and that nobody wants to talk about it. You have no idea what that's like. It's awful. It's really awful. Everything that we can offer to you to help you better make your own choices for the benefit of yourself, we have already offered. It's already there. But there were roadblocks and roadblocks and roadblocks into getting it out to a wider audience. We have done the best we could to get it out. It's there. You just need to go through it. You need to take the time to go through it on your own and connect the dots because they're there. Because we couldn't get it out to a wider audience, because the alternative media is not what people think it is, we are where we are. And it's not a good situation.
Pardon me. We have a caller from the 831 area.
All right. Who are we speaking with?
My name is Evan.
Yes, Evan?
Yeah, how you doing?
Wonderful. How are you this evening?
Pretty good. Yeah, I'm Facebook friends with James and Doc and Torres, and I want to thank you guys for putting out all this great information. I agree with you that it's like the time for talk is over, and it's time for just action. Wake up, be aware, and to do action.
Evan, how do you feel about what's going on right now? Do you feel the way that we feel, that ignorance is a choice at this point?
Yes, sadly, like maybe 1% of the people are awake.
Yeah, it is sad. In fact, it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, because I have no moral integrity anymore. People I've known for most of my life, and it's heartbreaking.
It is, but they've made their choice, haven't they?
Exactly. They don't seem to want to wake up. It's simple as there's a right and there's a wrong. No.
Yes, not a right and a left, a right and a wrong.
People are dysfunctional, people have mental illnesses, and people have neuroses or whatever. But that doesn't make things like stealing or hurting others or using others, treating others badly right in any way, shape, or form, but they don't get it. It's just kind of, I don't know.
Do you feel that they paint themselves into a world of their own and call it a comfort zone?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because a lot of their friends are extremely narcissistic, too, and act like they're in their own world, and pretty much can do whatever they want to whoever they want, whenever they want. You know, like sociopaths.
Yeah. Well, that's promoted. Even the fiction of today, you see that going on. You see people that almost sublimate vampires, werewolves.
Yeah.
You know, isn't that incredible?
Yeah, I think it's why those TV shows are so popular and stuff. There's so many psychic vampires around. They're not aware of it. But it's like, yeah, being a sociopath or a succubus is normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, the normalization of aberrancy is a one-way ticket to self-destruction.
That's a good line.
Well, there are a lot of people that like it because it frees them from personal accountability.
Exactly. They don't take responsibility for anything.
Well, we all have to come to terms with ourselves somewhere along the line, or we're not going to grow. I had to do that, too.
Me, too. Yep.
Me, too.
And me. Big time.
Do what?
Yep.
No one's perfect.
I don't have any wolves.
I didn't want to talk to Skype James, but I'm kind of shy of it.
Anytime you want to come into conversation, Doc and I talk almost every day.
I know. I'm shy. I've just been going through some wilderness roommate health stuff, and it's been a bit overwhelming.
Is a woman involved, Evan?
2 women who are pretty going.
Oh, you poor devil.
Yeah, one of them.
Poor devil.
They're not my girlfriends, but one is my best friend. He lives here, and we've had the cops out twice, so, I wish I could move.
Yeah. Evan, you recently had a stent put in. Are you feeling better?
Unfortunately, the heart meds make me feel sicker than a dog.
We'll get you in with a chat with James at some point, because I know that you're a regular on my Facebook, so we'll arrange to get you in on a conversation with James at some point. That would be great.
Yeah, I do want talking about herbs and healing and stuff, because I am taking a lot of herbs and vitamins.
And Evan, I want to point out what a wonderful human being you really are, because here you are, you have a medical condition that makes you pretty much feel like shit every day. It's hard to get out of bed, but you still are paying attention and you're still involved. It's not an excuse for anyone, and I really love that you shared that story with us. People are tired of being sick and tired, and I get it, but there's only one way to stop it.
Got a fake smile till you make it, as they say, is one way, and reach out to other good people.
Yeah.
She taught me that to just be polite to others no matter how bad you feel. And she died of cancer for the last 6 months of her life. She was bedridden. And she kept a positive attitude, even though she was in horrific pain and stuff. And not everyone could do that,
Doc has some of that quality too, doesn't he?
That's what I love about him. He's so positive, and even though he's very sick.
Yeah.
These idiots think they can run everything, But sometimes you got to be an asshole in life to get,
Well, sometimes people perceive you telling the truth as you being an asshole because they don't want to hear it. That doesn't make you an asshole.
People aren't sociopaths. There's so many enablers in the world, too.
That's really important, Evan. I'm glad you pointed that out.
People that say nothing, like this man with a drinking issue, I've talked to 5, 6 of his friends and family, and they're all like, oh yeah, we don't freaking quit without AA, and we're so embarrassed, and they won't say anything. We don't want you in that relationship, get help. And it's been going on for years,
Yeah, but certainly you can understand, Evan, having been involved with people like this, exactly what James is saying when he says ET, which is an awful word, because they're humans.
Yeah, I don't like that general description.
Yeah. They're not going to come here and save us. If we're addicted to our own demise, that's where we're going to go. And that's how it is with an addict. You can't save people from themselves.
Exactly. You can't lead a guide therapy and expect them to get better. They got to do more than just go to therapy. They have to get better and change and have an open mind and open spirit.
They have to want to get better and change.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's like I have a lot of friends who are one has extreme narcissistic personality disorder. Something that's run rampant in society with mental illness. A lot of people have narcissism and stuff because they say it's just really cool to be narcissistic and be a giant asshole to be, biggest trick on the block. That's cool, to be a bully.
Yeah. Look how tough I am. Yeah.
Yeah. But it don't have to be mean to be tough. There's a difference.
Yeah, the truth is tough enough.
Truth is tough enough. Who cares if you're tough? I mean, in her case, it's not like she's, coal miner doing some super tough physical job, that type of tough. And when emotionally toughness comes, she just buckles, and she's like in arrested development. Which is another word I love.
Ooh, I like that. Arrested development. Welcome to the human race.
So many people just...
Evan, it's been really nice of you to call in, but we've had so many questions on the blog. Would it be all right if we got back to some of those and then we can get you in contact with James at another point? Thanks ever so much for calling in.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, so I totally forgot whose turn it is to ask a question.
James, given the state of this planet currently, which, let's face it, is rapidly becoming a place no one would wish to live, nor can live on without enduring daily increasing hardship, at what point would it be considered that this experiment has failed completely? Do we have a chance to change the tide, or is this timeline so deeply entrenched in its obvious path of destruction, slavery, and most importantly, broadcast mind control, that anything the minority are doing for the good, for change, will be outdone by the monsters? So, moral people are striving to make a change, but it just doesn't seem to be making a difference. Where are we going? Do we have time to change it?
At the point, and I've said this from the beginning, at the point where genocide is obvious to any, it'll be over. The EMVs will leave Utah, and that'll be it. It'll happen very quickly. I've always discussed about the EMVs leaving the sun, but that's not going to happen. It'll be Utah. Now that the crust of the earth is destabilized, that'll do it.
Could you define genocide? Because if you look around you and you've actually got your eyes awake, to me, I would say that it's very much started in many, many different ways.
Well, you probably self-destruct anyway. I mean, the idiot running this country is about to, unless he pulls back, is going to create World War III, and you'll do it yourself. There's no such thing as limited nuclear exchange. I've tried to tackle that myth before, but people have to understand that whenever you see your cities vaporized, you will lose with everything you have. It's human nature. And of course, you've got Israel that boasts of Samson's hammer. And that will, if they have that capability and they use it, that will assure mutual destruction. And this earth won't need any help to become a new star.
And people can look that up. It's on Wikipedia under, instead of Samson's hammer, it's Samson's option. But people can go look it up. James isn't, blowing smoke up your dress. It's very real. And it is mad. It's insane.
Well, even Nostradamus predicted that Israel would do that. It's in one of his quatrains.
Yes, if things weren't changed.
That's right, if they're not changed. Of course, there's some things that they don't know about, and I don't really want to give them that information.
I don't blame you.
I'm not a fan of Zionism or the Talmud.
Yeah. I was just going to say, if the EMVs are not going to pull out from the sun, how long is it going to take if the cores have hit the mantle, for example, if that's going on now?
They've hit the mantle.
Yeah.
The only thing that's holding things together is the Utah operation. And if they leave that, it would be a matter of a few days at the most.
Okay.
What would define a point? At what point would they define that it would be suitable to leave? Is there a conscious decision by the EMVs that it's too late, there's nothing more that we can do?
It'll be precisely when they start gathering up people to exterminate them.
Right.
And
okay.
other people are standing there watching them doing it.
And doing
like
nothing.
Like what happened in Germany after 1938.
There is a question on your blog, James, that someone asked.
Is it the one about the God coming forward? Is that the one, Crystal?
Yes, I would really like for someone to ask that question about they know that James is here, and I want people to parallel this with the movie that just came out called Noah, and ask themselves, if there was ever a time that someone like this would be here, is this not it?
Do you want me to read the question out?
I would love for you to, very much.
Okay, right. This is the question. Okay. James, you mentioned to me that the reason for the Illuminati Satanists to announce their evil deeds beforehand is that they believe karma then won't fall back on them. I once had a discussion with a friend about the Illuminati, and I asked him for his opinion about their ultimate motives. His answer was that the Illuminati's objective is to challenge God. In that challenge, they want to force God to appear physically to intervene. That alone would already be considered a victory by them. Back in 2002, I had no idea about the hand of God, the EMVs in the corona of the sun, and if God possibly would or could appear. Now, if you change the term God to the judge, they may already consider themselves to be successful, provided that my friend's opinion has some validity. In the Bible, the titles God or the Father, the Judge, the Son, of the Sun, as in the sun up in the sky, the Lord or the Messiah, are often confused and interchangeable with the Judge, is the most accurate term for this function. I think the Illuminati are indeed aware of your presence at the last extinctions and today. They must know for sure from the discovered Hall of Records that the heavens have a means to end a civilization that is going their way, the wrong way. If humanity will indeed survive, we have to admit that they have had their share in creating the split consciousness being as a new variation. Does their high priest probably think that their endeavour serves a higher purpose? And are they probably aware of some aspects we are not? Or are they nothing but blind and deluded?
Well, they certainly are blind and deluded, and transhumanism is a cover for that delusion. They like to condition people to believe that there is an answer for the degradation of the earth by creating a enhanced human being that can survive almost anything. I was very dubious about the couple from the Ukraine that had lived near Chernobyl and had learned to thrive or had acquired the ability to thrive on radiation. Because to me that could have been a plant that could have been feeding into that delusion. But after I saw the people and heard them talk, I knew they were genuine. They were a product of adaptation, not mutation, adaptation.
We get used to it.
My brothers and sisters, guess what? We're back. We had to reboot the whole world here because apparently my favorite bunch here was talking about something they didn't want us to talk about. I want them to talk about. Go ahead, recorders going, ladies, gentlemen. You have it.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay. Is James with us? Oh, yes, good.
Yes.
Okay, right. You remember the question that we were on, James? Of course.
Yeah.
Well, look, I don't know if listeners do, so I want to reiterate the important points of the question. And that is James's appearance here at this moment in time as the judge, and that the powers that be know he's here.
Well, I'm sure that's true. I mean, what has happened to me all my life, even before I knew it myself. There were numerous attempts on my life, and I always skated out. When I was 6 years old, I was hit by a car in a school zone, a woman intent on hitting me. I was looking her straight in the eyes when she veered. I had 1 foot on the curb when she hit me. She veered to hit me. So that was an interesting outcome. There was one thing after another, and it began when I was 4 years old with my family coming to Texas from New Mexico. And from then on, it just throughout my life, culminating with an event in Sasebo Harbor, Japan, when I was in the Navy. So,
well, let me interject because I don't want you to feel like you're on the spot. So I want to explain what I think about you and your appearance here at this time. When I first heard you on the Kevin Smith Show, which was in 2010, I think maybe the end of 2009, we were all on the same forum. It was the Manticore Forum. And I had done a show with Mal on Veritas and entered his forum where I talked about that the sun reacts to what we do. because I was so already sick and tired of the Ed Dames of the world and the kill shot, because as we've already explained earlier in the show and elsewhere, creation requires stability for a race that is going to live long and persist and prosper. Okay. And so I reverted back to something Edgar Cayce said, in that the sun is responding to us. And then Tors, who I met on Mel's forum, said, hey, this guy James Horak is on the Kevin Smith show, and he's saying things very similar to you. Now, this was when Kevin would let the show, he would post it on his site for free after he did the show all night and all day long until the next show. And Tors said, hey, go look at what this guy said before Kevin changes it to the new show. I went and listened. I listened to you explain who you were. And you tried to explain it in a way that you thought people here would understand by going back to the story of Sodom and Gomorrah and how it's kind of sort of like that, but not really, and that you're the judge. And when I heard that, because I was so jaded with anything even remotely close to religion, I tuned you out. I didn't want to hear anything more you had to say. I thought, okay, this is just another David Icke who thinks he's Jesus or whatever, and I'm not interested. Eventually, though, over time, I went back to see what else you were saying. And you were, as I've said, the only other person on the planet, the only other person on the entire planet who understood what I had learned. This was our last go on the wheel, and we were repeating all of the same mistakes. And if we didn't change course, we were going to get where we were going. And the moment I heard you say that, I had to pay attention. So I had to find a way to get over that, to get past it. But as we became very, very good friends, James is one of my best friends. He's a very dear friend. And I got to know you. What I can tell the listeners is, can I prove to you 100% beyond any shadow of a doubt that James is who he says he is? Of course not. I can't. What I can tell you is that he doesn't make sense any other way. He just doesn't. I've known this man for years. He has an integrity that is almost extinct on this planet, and it might surprise people to know that while we've had numerous private conversations, it's always about this, about what's happening, about what to do about it. That's what we talk about. And what's really interesting about this, too, which came to me in hindsight, obviously, because I had finished and released my first book before I met James, there was a tarot reading that I did. It was a 3-card reading that I put in the book, and people who have the book can go back and look at this. And the reading was mostly about 2012. We all going to die and what's really going on. It was 3 cards, and one of those cards was the judge. Now, I understand why and how tarot works, and it does work, which is why I use it. I use it privately. I don't do readings for other people because I don't want other people putting their self-responsibility on me. That ship sailed a long time ago. But what's interesting about it, if you go look up what the meaning of that card is, it's the judgment card. You find that what it means is, and you see this angel at the top of the card with the Red Cross banner blowing a horn, and you see all these people down below that are standing in the grave. And the meaning of this card is that you are being called to use good judgment because by an individual who sees that you need to use good judgment because they see you standing in the grave. And, you know, I've seen some people post on Facebook about having seen the film Noah, and they really hated it, and they thought it was awful, and blah, blah, blah. I didn't go see it, because I already know that story. But my husband and my son went to see it, and they came home and they told me about it. And what's so interesting about it is, sure, they took some creative license in terms of fallen angels and watchers and on, but you have to admit, logically, that if there is a higher power watching over what we do here, and that they ultimately decide when to put the dog out of its misery, if there was ever a time that someone like that would appear to us on this planet, it's now. And I think that the really, really bad reviews that people gave that film, Noah, has to do with the fact that we have a lot of people on this planet that are cowards. Oh, it was so mean and terrible. Take an honest look around and tell me if you can't see the reality of that about to unfold in front of your eyes. You know, he was standing on a pile of bones and watching people murder and kill and destroy everything. Can you not see that happening right now? Can you not see that? And I will tell you that for me personally, there's a certain solace that I have knowing, James, and thinking in the back of my mind, I don't fear death. What I fear is being forced to watch for the remainder of my life the endless, needless suffering of millions of people. I don't want to go through that. And there is solace for me in knowing that there is someone here that will look down on what we've done with an overview that the people on this planet can't be bothered long enough to achieve on their own, and will put us out of our misery before we go through that. Now, the listeners can do whatever they want with that. I would like for Myrid and Taurus to comment themselves, but that's how I feel about it. If James wasn't who he says he was, I can tell you I wish he was.
I'd agree with that.
Well, you know, I've always said this. Maybe I should have said it more publicly. But that a prophet is someone who, when they tell you something, if it isn't true, you wish to God it were.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's face it, someone needs to judge us.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that Crystal said. I haven't known James as long as Taurus and Crystal have. And I came in late, so to speak, and I explained earlier why that was through Crystal introducing me to James. And I had to struggle with the programming that, you know, I fight so hard against now, because I see how much it's working against people who are already in the alternative realm, like I was. They're already questioning, they're looking at the UFO thing, they're looking at free energy, they're trying to find that wonder, and it's being hidden from them, they're being lied to. And then it goes into another level where the whole raise your vibration, you know, it's totally insane. And I was so grateful to become a friend of James's, and we talk about the way the situation is on this planet, but we also talk about creativity, the poetry, the beauty that's there within all of us, that we have this potential. And what frustrates me on so many levels is seeing people not acknowledge that potential within themselves and blindly follow the lies. So
let's explore the question as though James is who he says he is. And in order to do that, and I hate to put you on the spot, Myrid, I would like for you to reread the question.
Okay. James, you mentioned to me that the reason for the Illuminati Satanists to announce their evil deeds beforehand is that they believe karma then won't fall back on them. I once had a discussion with a friend about the Illuminati, and I asked him for his opinion about their ultimate motives. His answer was that the Illuminati's objective is to challenge God. In that challenge, they want to force God to appear physically to intervene. That alone would already be considered a victory by them. Back in 2002, I had no idea about the hand of God, the EMBs and the coronas of the sun, and if God possibly would or could appear. Now, if you change the term God to the judge, they may already consider themselves to be successful, provided that my friend's opinion has some validity. In the Bible, the titles God or the Father, the Judge, the Son of the Son, the Lord or the Messiah are often confused and interchangeable, but the Judge is the most accurate term for this function. I think that the Illuminati are indeed aware of your presence at the last extinctions and today. They must know for sure from the discovered halls of records that the heavens have a means to end a civilization that is going their way the wrong way. If humanity will indeed survive, we have to admit that they have had their share in creating the split consciousness being as a new variation. Does their high priest probably think that their endeavour serves a higher purpose Or are they probably aware of some aspects we are not, or are they nothing but blind and deluded?
Can I just add that this question was actually from Shuni?
It's a beautiful question, and it's very important, and I would like to address it before James does. The cognitive dissonance in the religious community is profound. They will murder each other relentlessly because they're using different names for a creator they have never met, have no idea if it even has a name, and all the while completely ignore everything that creator gave them while it's subsequently being destroyed. And that's pathetic. It's sickening. And here's another way. This is the way I've looked at it for a very long time, because this is a meme that's been going around for decades. Let's look at Jesus. You know, how people say, oh, Jesus is going to come back and save us. Never mind the fact that he was murdered the first time for trying to do that, while people looked on and watched and did nothing. But let's suppose that Jesus was a CEO, and he spent his entire life building this wonderful company, was worth billions of dollars, and he goes to his son and he says, I have built all of this for you. Now I'm giving it to you. Now you're the steward of everything I've given you. And I'm going to go on vacation because I know that you can handle it and my work here is done. And then the son, after some time goes by, misses his father so much he drives the entire company into the ground just so his father will come back. What do you think his father would say? You've destroyed everything I've given you. Everything. That's how sad it is. So, furthermore, James is not God. He's never pretended to be God. He's never pretended to be Jesus. He's been very, very clear and precise about who and what he is and the role he plays. He doesn't make exaggerations. If you ask him, he will tell you. And you have to consider that those of us on this call who know James have known this for years, and we never bring it up. In fact, I encourage people not to bring it up normally because it sidetracks people. Because you have so many idiots out there pretending that they're something that they aren't to muddy the waters. So, James, can you please, one last time, explain who you are and what your function is?
I'm a part of the EMVs. I'm their communique, their liaison between them, and because their language is not comprehensible to anyone else. And there's a reason for that. And I deal with ETs, their communities, and I go inside EMVs. I monitor other systems that are enjoying the same protection. And I'm just part of something that is in place to provide what is necessary, what is needed for systems to support complex life. Without it, there wouldn't be any complex life. There would simply be a meaninglessness to existence.
Okay, so going back to the question this person asked. So if these idiots thought, well, if I destroy everything, God will show his hand, and the idea that you being here means that that actually happened, I think goes back to the metaphor I just used, because you're here, okay, you've totally screwed it up, and now I'm here, and I'm telling you that if you keep screwing it up, you're going to die. Have they changed anything? No. So what was the point?
No, it's just, they are in your face, brazenly. They think they can be equal with wonders that they can't appreciate. Want to destroy any evidence that they're incorrect. In this existence, they'd rather have the presumption of being on top than to lose being on the top and survive, even with the luxuries that they have been allowed to have. That amazes me that as prurient as they are, as materialistic as they are, sacrifice it all. Surely they know that the outcome, since they've had access to these halls of records which touch upon former lineages, surely they know what the outcome's going to be to their actions. Surely.
Yeah, they do, and in fact we have explained this repeatedly. That's why they won't show those records to us, because the patterns of our demise are in those records, and if we knew that, we wouldn't let them do what they're doing, But what's so pathetic about it is, so let's suppose that this question this fellow asked was right, and I don't, maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe the Illuminati think like that, and maybe they don't. Maybe they tried really hard to mess things up so that someone like you would come. Well, now you're here, but as you explained, they've tried to murder you repeatedly.
Well, I won't give them the satisfaction they crave. I know what they want.
Yeah, we all do.
I had 2 of their servants visit me. I told you about those 2 young men. That's where they were from.
Now look, just so people know, I don't wash James's feet with my hair, and I don't, I don't, and I do argue with James on occasion. There are some things we disagree over, but we're looking at what's happening from 2 completely different perspectives. We try to meet in the middle because for the most part, we do want the same thing, but there are times we don't agree. My relationship with James is based on what I learned through my dreams, in that if we don't change the path that we're on, we're going to get where we're going. And I can see it from here. We're that close. That's why James and I are friends, because he gets it. He understands it. He knows what has to be done to stop it. And that's what matters to me. I don't sit here and labor over, is he who he says he is or is he not? You know what? I don't really care, because it doesn't change anything. What will change things is people doing what they know is right. Regardless.
You want me to tell you a little secret, Crystal?
Why not?
Everybody else.
Yeah.
This is just for Crystal. Turn your ears off. No. I'll tell everybody a little secret. I've won. I've accomplished what I desired most. And they can't take that away from me. I've proven that there are people with split consciousness that are as capable and as beautiful as people with unified consciousness.
Amen.
Yep.
Finally.
I brought it up earlier, but there's so much to talk about. But James, would you mind again? Because people need it so badly. They have been beaten down and beaten down and beaten down to the point that they don't. I care more about people than they care about themselves, which is very, very sad. I think that people could really benefit from an outsider's perspective on why we're so special and different and why it matters.
I would say probably the average of all the members of the extended community, the age of their continuous civilizations is somewhere between 35 and 40,000 years. And in that time, they have perfected so many things. They have discovered so many things. They have learned the real meaning of grandeur. And once you reach that pinnacle, then it's all downward from there on. I mean, there's no intensity. Creativity becomes, there's no, and so they decline in certain ways creatively. To come across something like humanity here that is intense and creative and, goes from one extreme to the next, and you see virtue tested. And you don't see virtue tested in the extended community because there's no point to it. So they forget. And of course they forget their own growth. After all that time, they forget their own history. And they don't realize that the things that you're going through are similar in ways to what they went through, but you're also coupled with a handicap they didn't have to deal with. And that's a split consciousness. So split consciousness offers something that is new and bold, and it tests them. So they're fearful. And, of course, it took me a long time of dealing with them to convince them to wait and be patient. I mentioned before, one of them, who was an elder, was argumentative one day, and I took one of the greatest American novels ever written and put it in his hand and said, read it. And after he had read it, he said, my God, these people can do this? And I said, yes. And it brought him to tears. So, I've been in your corner.
Yes, and I want to go back to what I said earlier in response to the question that Judith asked. It's not we that have given up. It's you. It's you listening, you the listeners. We haven't given up on you. You have given up on you. And I don't know what more we can say to change that, because it's your own choice. That's your choice.
You're giving up when you give up reality and the beauty that a reality contains to huddle in your comfort zone, which is in a dark, dank place where there is absolute denial of your greatest gifts.
Yeah. Look, it's beyond my capability to have any of you listening love you as much as I love you. I can't do that. You have to do that. You have to care enough about you to fight for you. I can't do it all. James can't do it all. Taurus can't do it all. Myrid can't do it all. Dave can't do it all. You have to care enough about you. You need to know that your life matters and means something enough to fight for it. That's important. Really important. And we've said this before.
Yes.
Many times. So, all right, it's late. You know, Dave is always very gracious, and I'm going to miss Dave and our shows with him because he's just really a wonderful human being. I've got 2 more questions that people asked, and I would like to get those in. I don't know if you guys have any more questions that you would like to get into. Myrid, Taurus?
No, you asked the ones you need to ask, and then.
Okay, these are the last 2. This one came from Anonymous. Given that good science is no longer taught to the public, can you please speak to the validity of the expanding planet theory and increased solar radiation being responsible for causing earthquakes? If neither theory is accurate, can you offer a model that is?
It's a good question, and of course, under certain conditions, solar activity can produce ill effects, but not whenever nature already has been unbalanced by practices generated by man here on this planet. If there is an adherence to nature, with the EMVs in the sun, and with a healthy attitude and technology, this expanding planet and this damage from the sun is just no problem at all. It doesn't exist. However, if things are mishandled here, then it will invite catastrophe. And one of the things that has happened is that there have been some CMEs that were sent to knock some of these satellites out of the sky intentionally. There have been times
Wait. Before you go forward, James, please don't skip over this. Why is it doing a service to humanity to fry those satellites? Again, we are being watched out for. Why is that so important?
They were being used to aim HARP.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
There's that. Plus, there have been a couple of times that ET has intervened and prevented World War III.
That's in previous shows. People can go back and listen to. That's been explained, yeah.
Right now, there are very large ET craft on the dark side of the moon, waiting to prevent the moon from coming into Earth because of these cores hitting the mantle and affecting the function of the engines that are coordinating with machines in the moon.
So just to re-emphasize what you said, because in the beginning of the show we talked about these earthquakes that are around 350 miles deep. That's the first consequence of the cores hitting the mantle, because the engines, which engine people can go back through our work and look at this. The word engine is not a good word, I don't think, because most people mentally equate this to a car engine with motors and cogs and wheels. That's not what they look like. They look like large dipsticks. They're just long, straight pieces that have functions people here don't understand. But they're all over the planet, and they were put here to keep the moon from going in and out. But now that the cores have hit the mantle of the Earth, there's interference. So we're going to start seeing problems with the moon. Unless we have help, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah. That is a problem. Of course, I have warned about these cores hitting the mantle. And, of course, no one else will talk about it, which is disgusting. I mean, after all, it was the AEC that came up with the phrase China syndrome, wasn't it? What do they think? I mean, you have idiots, liars, that are so-called scientists that would have you believe the first time that they hit groundwater, there's this explosion, and that's the end of it. No, it's not. In fact, one of these cores is growing in mass. And that's a phenomena that should be new to them.
And not in a good way.
Not in a good way, no. So they need to realize they need help. They need to change. They need to get rid of the puppets. You need to get rid of the people, the puppet masters. You need to get back on track and realize that they need help and bring their arrogance down a little notch at a time until it's right there where they'll ask for it. And they'll accept the terms under which it'll be given, which is not to interfere with your culture or not to interfere with your progress, but certainly to interfere with your weapon making, your use of nuclear energy, which is irresponsible, and the man-made famines and these stupid vaccinations and all that crap. Because
genocide. It's genocide.
War with nature.
That's all they think
war
about.
With nature.
Yeah.
You know, in that question, there is this talk about actual war with God. Well, that takes the form on Earth as war with nature, doesn't it?
It has many different faces, and they're all ugly, and they're not survivable long term. So, all right, we have a couple of more questions. James, was there anything else you wanted to add before we move on?
No, it's fine.
Okay, so this one comes from a fellow who calls himself G, and I know he's from France. So hello to the fellow in France. Dear James, have you seen the ITER project currently being built in France? I would be immensely interested in what you think. In comparison, this makes CERN look like a merry-go-round.
Yeah, well, it's a catastrophic dog and pony show. It is oblivious to the needs of the people. It has nothing in common with their interests, any more than CERN, any more than HARP, or the Hadron Collider. This should not be done. There's no benefit to humanity involved. I think what sums it up best is that it is another one of these contraptions that is supposed to prove someone's delusion to someone, kind of like the Hadron Collider was purported to find the God particle, you know, what created us, what created the universe or whatever. This is hogwash.
It's bullshit.
You know, it's pretentious beyond belief. You know, pride goeth before a fall, to quote the Bible. Arrogance is the common denominator of a man without a conscience. That's what we have. Whether the scientists involved would fall in that category or not, I don't know. But I do know that enough of them do. Or else they wouldn't be working on this kind of crap. You know, it's not edifying to bringing mankind closer to an end. You can't be a good physicist or good astrophysicist and not be aware of the end product.
Well, you can't be a decent human being and contribute to the demise of your entire species. I think it just needs to be called out for what it is.
we have created a society that is enamored of speed, is enamored of travel, is enamored of this and enamored of that, and has lost its way in achieving peace of mind, leisure time, and a respect for the dignity of others.
Yeah, never mind the dignity of themselves. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you can't have dignity for yourself if you don't have it for others, because it's a comparative relativism that it's something that if it isn't shared, doesn't exist. And this is a great truth that they've forgotten. And there have always been wise men on this earth that have known this and tried to teach it. You know, the greatest alchemists were the ones that began from a moral stance and operated always holding to that moral stance. They believed firmly that the outcome of an experiment or of a project was determined by the virtue of whatever intention was behind it. It's like a prayer, and this made them great. This made them succeed, and I wish there were some today. But these were adepts. These were people that I taught.
Well, in all fairness, and I've been very vocal about this, I'm really, really disgusted with all of these New Age nincompoops that want to shift fixing what's happening here to the children, the special children, the star seeds, the hybrids, the indigos. That's sickening. Really? You're such a coward that you're going to make your children save your ass? That's pathetic. Pathetic.
Isn't it? Isn't it? Well, that's transference. That's transference.
It's blame shifting.
Cheapest form, yeah. It is.
It's awful.
I mean, it's an escape from personal accountability.
You betcha.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's the coward's corner, once again. Okay, this is the last question that I have, and then any other questions anybody else has, feel free. This came from Anonymous. What are the true roots of the Buddhist religions and or the current practices, etc.?
People like Confucius. People that were trying to come to terms with a philosophy. Well, they knew that there was a need to unify thought around philosophical and moral principles and guidelines. They knew that. Confucius was a great teacher in that respect.
Yes.
But what we have today is a culmination of the Hindu and Buddhist beliefs and traditions, so much in such a degree that it's very confusing from these principles of early Buddhism, or what later became Taoist Buddhism. The interesting thing about it is that there was a great deal of beauty that emanated out of the Mongol period when Genghis Khan took northern India, and there was an admixture of Buddhist, Taoist, and Hindu beliefs, and the art, the philosophy, everything reached its high point. That is almost the way that genetics operates. If you have a genetic pool that's broad and mixed, adaptation is enhanced.
Easier, more successful.
And this happened, and of course, it was a golden period for India and China both. And I wish it had persisted. It would have been better for both countries. It didn't. Genghis Khan's heirs had governance that weren't as carefully as the great Genghis Khan, who was an incredible ruler. Very humane. Everything that you hear in the West about Genghis Khan is wrong. He was extraordinary in many ways. This is true of a great many people that have advanced their culture, even at the expense of military conquest, which in that day and time persisted among all the cultures and civilizations.
Thank you, James. Do you, Myrid or Taurus, have any more questions from the audience that you would like to ask?
I have seen one, yes. It was asked recently, but it's actually a huge question. James, just to do deference to the person that actually asked it, could you possibly touch upon it? This is a question from Anonymous. James, can you explain where our memory is actually stored? We have been led to believe that our brain retains our memories, yet as I understand, the first Russian astronauts lost their memory when they were left our atmosphere, and it was determined that a magnetic belt was needed to be worn in future missions. Similarly, the gentleman you spoke about who had his brain removed in a trepanning operation fully retained his memory, skills and talents without his brain. Likewise, when people read the Akashic records, where is the sum total of information stored, and how are people like Edgar Cayce able to see or read the memory of people's previous lifetimes? Would the memory storage medium be a magnetic field surrounding the Earth or something more complex? And I know we've actually delved into this before, but I think it needs to be clarified for this person. Thank you.
Well, there's several different questions here. Some are interrelated and some are not. For instance, the way in which the mind works. The mind is not
May I interrupt?
Is extraneous to the brain.
May I interrupt for a moment?
Sure.
You have a caller from 941 area.
All right.
Hello, James. It's Jackie from Florida. Haven't talked to you in a long time.
How are you?
I'm doing well, and it's really been enjoyable to have your shows with Crystal, and hi to Taurus, too.
Hello,
and
Jackie.
Hi. I hope you're doing well, too. But your shows have been great, and I really understand it's like you just keep repeating, and the ones who are doing stuff out here continue to bug our friends with what we hear, but it is like beating on an empty drum. It's just very strange out here. I don't know what to think.
I'm not the only critter that doesn't like redundancy. I mean, the universe doesn't like redundancy, and I'm fond of saying that redundantly.
Well, it's true, but you know, when we listen to you, usually, like you did on Kevin, usually there's a little something new every time, too. So we all appreciate that. But I hope occasionally you guys might show up before everything just falls down around our ears. And I won't take up a lot of your time, but I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate all of you guys doing the shows. They've really been great.
Well, thank you, Jackie. I take that to heart.
Thank you, James. Bye.
Take care.
I suppose that I should point out that while we're not going to do any more Race with Time radio shows, that doesn't mean that we won't be guests on other radio shows. In fact, a month ago, I committed to doing a radio show in about a week that I committed to before we made this decision. If there are other people out there that genuinely want to hear what we have to say, I'll do it. But that's the only way I'm going to do it, because you have to understand, I'm not going to hold your hand anymore. You're grown-ups. You are grown men and women. For 10 years, I have been holding hands with people, trying to coax them and move them along. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to hold the hand of the child I gave birth to and make sure he can survive the apathy of everyone else. That's my job now.
Well put. Well put. Well put. And you have a wonderful youngster there.
Oh, he's beautiful. He's beautiful, and he damn sure deserves better than this.
Look your children in the eye and tell them everything's going to be okay. I dare you, because guess what? It's not. Unless you as adults actually pull your fingers out and prevent what is going to happen, not might happen, is going to happen. I look my children in the eye and I say to them, no, things are not good. I'm sorry, I can't tell you otherwise, but I'm working on trying to make it better. And as do they. And this is what we should all be doing. And we say it time after time after time, and we just, how many more times do we have to say it?
Well, you can't lie to children. They know.
Yeah, they do know. They know.
They do know. I mean, they know you because they study you. Imagine if you have a cat or you have a dog, that cat and that dog study you. Well, your children study you even more. They know when you're lying. They know when you're ill at ease. They know all these things. It's instinct. It's instinct. You're the most important thing in their life. You're their protector. You're their provider. You think they don't study you?
Children want to know the truth as well. They don't have learned fear. They do not have it. And they expect the truth from you. I had a conversation the other day with someone and they said, didn't you used to think when you were a child that when you were older things would be so much better? Yes, I did. And look at us. Nothing is better. If anything, it is 100 times worse. And that saddens me. It disappoints me because I look at my children and they can't have their dreams of having a better world, a better future. It's our responsibility to make it that way for them.
An alchemist would often take children from couples that wanted to give the child the benefit of that science or that acumen that the adept or the alchemist had, and they would serve. They would be apprentices, and they would serve, and when that apprentice left, they would be capable and able to take over and pass on the knowledge that they had obtained to their apprentices. And there would be women and men, both. Of course, that's been lost in history. That's been lost in time. There was a certain fulfillment when the alchemist had a boy and a girl both, and raised them as his own, and taught them. And it was very fulfilling.
Well, I don't have anything more to add. I think we've said really all that can be said. And what people need to know is out there. They just need to do something with it. So do you guys have anything that you would like to add before we wrap it up?
Just if there's been any questions on the blog that haven't been answered, I'm sure that James will endeavour to go through and answer them. We were going to answer that memory one, but we got cut off, but that's fine. And
I will be painstaking about it, too.
Yes, indeed. You always are, James. You're incredibly patient. And I just feel that we've covered everything that we've talked about privately recently about what we needed to say, and I hope that people have heard it and will listen. Come to the blog, to Crystal's blog and James's blog, and just read and listen to the interviews, and you will learn a great deal what you need to know.
And I would like to add, people really don't have any idea how hard we worked painstakingly to connect the dots, how hard we worked to decide what needs to be said today that will help people in the now. It was painstaking. I just don't think that people really understand. They really don't. But I'll tell you what, you have to make your own choices, all of you, and you know that. And I will tell you that when you love you and your children and your future as much as we do, then we'll meet each other on the other side. And we'll become members of the extended community, and we will see and experience things that we can't even begin to dream of. But if you decide that you don't love your children and yourself and your future as much as we love you, we can't change that. And that is going to lead to our destruction. And it would be awful. Awful. It would be awful because you all matter. You're all beautiful. You're all wonderful. You all have something important to contribute, but you live in a world that won't let you. You have to change it, and not just because it's the right thing to do, but because your survival depends on it. When you love you enough to fight for you, we'll get through it. Until then, nothing we say or do is going to matter. That you have to make that choice. We've already made ours.
Amen.
All right. Yeah. Well, I want to thank everyone again. I want to thank the callers who called in. I want to thank the folks who took the time to write very thoughtful and important questions so that we could address them here today. And I also, again, want to thank Dave Corso for his love and compassion and his hard work and for everything he's done for us and for others. Thank you, Dave.
You're quite welcome.
I would also like to mention Patrice, who has done exceedingly well with graphics, and Shuni, who has been very helpful, has been a good friend and a good conversant. Probably one of the best questions we had was from him tonight. And I'm probably going to have to answer it a little bit better to him, but I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it was a beautiful question. Thank you, Shuni.
Yeah.
It was that good they knocked us off.
Well, unless we're talking about them, they don't want God ever mentioned. I mean, they have a thing about God. I mean, they're really God-phobic.
All right, so I think we should wrap it up, and Again, I just want to reiterate one more time, and I can't speak for the others. I can only speak for me. I have already committed to another radio show, ironically with a UFO group, and I'm not a UFO person. But once they explained to me why they were having me on the show, I understood and I appreciate it. And I'm also going to continue writing articles and finish the book.
I understand and respect that very much, Crystal. Myra has been a gift to us. She has been very helpful and very clear thinking. You know, you want to know how deep the water is, you put a dipstick in it to tell, and she has been an excellent dipstick for us. I mean that in a very flattering way, Mary.
It's not a very flattering term where I come from, but I understand what you're saying.
I know. It's a cultural distinction, my dear, so don't apply it literally. Yours.
That's funny.
I just want to say one last thing, James. Every day I thank the universe for the time that I've been able to spend with you. But I, like everybody else here, wants the future that I dreamed of as a child. I want that future, and I'm not going to stop fighting for it no matter what happens. Let's, as a species, try and get there, please.
We do the best we can with what we have to work with, Doris, and you know, you have 3 wonderful children. I envy you. And, you know, there's always problems to work out, but you can't judge your children by the problems they bring you. And, you know, I learned that the hard way.
May I say something now?
You bet.
Yes, please.
To Crystal and James and Myred and to Torres, it has been my honor, my delight, and my pleasure to provide a platform for you. Anytime you want to hold a special show, let me know.
All right. I'm sure we're going to take you up on that, Dave.
I would hope so.
We're going to. Yeah.
And ladies and
I
gentlemen.
feel the same way, Dave. Thank you very much.
And if that's all, then can we wrap it up?
That's it.
Thanks,
Good night.
Dave. Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
We're off the air. This is Dave from the Wolf's Den Studio saying welcome to Wolf Spirit Radio. Wolf Spirit Radio is totally listener supported by folks like you who choose to help us stay on the air and grow.
You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.